Hey everybody, welcome to the History of FMW. This is episode number 27. This is going to be the final episode covering the official FMW. This is going to be, we're going to be covering January to June of 2002. In the last episode, we reached the segment where Hayabusa missed a moonsault, and he is now he's paralyzed, and his in-ring career is officially over. So that is FMW's ace is now gone. Brett, if before we get started, if you want to just let people know what are the financials like for FMW now, and what struggles are they going to face as they try to continue into 2002 without their biggest star?
Yeah, they're millions of dollars in debt. I mean, they had been millions of dollars, or been over $1 million in debt going into 2001, and now they're in the two to two and a half, nearing $3 million debt range. Losing Hayabusa is pretty much guaranteed that I went over it last episode where there was an audience of the FMW fans, and then there was an audience of the Hayabusa fans that were coming to the FMW shows to see Hayabusa specifically. Well, when Hayabusa was out earlier in the year, they left, and they started losing a lot of money, especially on the house shows, and Corrigan Hall's shows were no longer making up that money that they were losing at the house shows. They're just bleeding through money at this point. Hayabusa comes back. Things are starting to be more stable, but they're still losing money. It's not like Hayabusa was, all of a sudden now they're making money. They're just losing less money as a result. Well, now Hayabusa is injured, paralyzed, and he's not coming back. So now there's not even that long term. Hayabusa's coming back. He's going to fix everything. Everything's going to be okay. And now you've lost that Hayabusa fan base again. So now you're millions of dollars in debt from the past couple of years of just losing money. 6 months of Hayabusa being out from late 2000 to early 2001. Now Hayabusa's out, and now you're running shows again without Hayabusa, and that Hayabusa loyal fan base is not showing up. So now your attendance has dropped back down again to a deadly. This is not a thriving, promotion. This is a struggling, very, very hurting promotion.
And just to ask, who owns this debt?
Shoichi Arai is the one. The FMW company itself is, is the one in the company itself. FMW Frontier Martial Arts Incorporated, but Shoichi Arai is the one in charge. He's the one that needs to, get the money and bring in the money and making the bills and everything like that. So, it's the company itself that is officially in debt. But Shoichi Arai is a very, very poor man at this point. Also, his life is going downhill. He just had a divorce back in October, around the time period that Hayabusa was injured. His wife had left him, and now he's having to pay child support and having to move out and everything like that as well. So he financially is struggling personally as well as his company, because one of the things to try and keep FMW going, the company itself, was Arai was putting up his personal money to keep it going. He was paying, he was paying his friends, he was getting his family, he was putting loans on his car and everything to be able to keep FMW going. And that was one of the reasons his wife left him, was she was so upset that why would you sacrifice your way of living, your family's, money to keep a company going?
All right. Well, okay. Let's jump into the timeline real quick. Before we get to FMW, one note is on New Year's Eve, Onita went to an Inoki branded show. Obviously, Inoki and Onita never had that big match. What was Onita's intentions when he went to this show?
All he did was he had his Onita fan base. He's outside in the parking lot and everything, and I mean there's tons of fans and everything following him, and he's he comes to the door and everything, and then that's it. He's not allowed in, and there was nothing. I mean, it was literally just him trying to get attention, but he knew he wasn't gonna be able to get in, and like I said, there's all these fans and everything just surrounding him, but he nothing ended up happening as a result.
And Onita, he's gonna be entering back in as a major player by the end of this. So, okay, the first FMW show of the year is going to be the standard January 6th show, which is in Kurokan Hall. If you want to go over that show for us.
Yeah, so they announced 2,100 fans, but again, these are obviously not near sellouts, but Corrigan at this point, they weren't as deadly as they had been back in like March and April without Hayabusa. There was a decent amount of fans, like I said, it's probably about half full or so. But the two top matches. So the main thing now going into 2002 is Fuyuki is going to have his own foreign heel group. It's kind of going to be like the ECW Japan group from 2000, but it's not going to have the ECW name. WWF owns that at this point, all the ECW trademarks, but a lot of the ECW wrestlers are now available. And so they end up bringing back Balls Mahoney, as well as they bring in the Sandman and Vic Grimes as well. And so they team up to take on Tetsuhiro Kuroda and Mr. Ganosuke and Mama Sasaki. And it is a hardcore brawl, lots of chairs, tables, and everything. The one big spot here is Mr. Ganosuke, who I talked about last episode. He kind of got over as a babyface due to Hayabusa being injured and everything, and cut this passionate promo, and because of him being legitimate best friends with Hayabusa, and so he's a babyface, and it's FMW against Fuyuki and the Foreigners and everything. Well, he ends up getting put on a table and on the outside of the ring, and Vic Grimes climbs up the turnbuckle, and he ends up doing a dive, like a somersault dive, off the turnbuckle to the outside to send Ganosuke through the table. Problem was the spot was for Ganosuke to move out of the way, and Grimes was just going to go through the table himself. Well, Ganosuke's leg ends up getting caught under the table, and he doesn't end up escaping all the way. His leg's still under the table when 400-pound Vic Grimes comes crashing down with a somersault through the table, breaks Ganosuke's leg. Ganosuke now cannot move or anything like that. He has to be, he's laying out there. He's needed to be attended to, and eventually they end up having to carry him out. And so the match is just a 2-on-3 match. Only other notable real spot here was Sandman who was pretty over here as well. I mean, the fans loved his entrance and everything, but he does a spot where he's climbing up the turnbuckle, and Mama Sasaki takes him, grabs him, and throws him off the turnbuckle to the outside, where two tables, one on top of the other, are stacked up, and Sandman gets thrown through two tables, which is a pretty impressive spot. But like I said, it's 2-on-3. And they're actually kind of pushing Vic Grimes here because of how big he is. And Mama Sasaki, he's a big guy as well. So it's kind of like a Mammoth Vic Grimes mini feud going on before Vic Grimes would end up pinning Mammoth Sasaki. And Vic Grimes gets on the mic and ends up calling Mammoth a fat piece of crap, which is pretty ironic considering Vic Grimes is probably twice the size of Mammoth Sasaki. But so this is to get over the new heel side and everything. This show, and before I forget, this show, FMW changed directions at the start of the year. I talked about the last couple episodes, or the last couple of shows were actually pretty decent and everything. There was no Hayabusa, but there was a passionate fan base and everything, and they were heard, and they had some good bloody matches. Everything just went to crap in 2002, and I mean, I think it's just I don't know if it was just the direction or knowing it was just time to give up, but this show is just not good. I mean, all the matches, the match I just described was okay just because of the spots that everyone was willing to go through, but all the undercard matches are horrible. The best thing about this show is actually they have a introduction. Like they have a brand new TV entrance to the show, and it's a Public Enemy music is playing while all the FMW wrestlers have their own little vignette skits and everything. That's probably the best part of this show because, like I said, it's just 2002 FMW. They did not go out with a bang pretty much. But the main event also is Kentaro Kanemaru. He's defending his WEW world title against Kodo Fuyuki. This is pretty much just to get Fuyuki over as the top heel again. And so I mean, it's an okay match, and Fuyuki, Kanemaru ends up sending Fuyuki through a table. Kanemaru looks like he's about to send Fuyuki through another table when the foreign heel group ends up charging the ring and attacking Kanemaru, which causes Mama Sasaki and Tetsuhiro Kuroda to run the ring. So there's a big brawl and everything before they're all cleared out, and the finishing sequence is Fuyuki going for a lariat and Kanemaru ducking out of the way, but Fuyuki then coming back and smashing him with another lariat and putting Kanemaru away. So now Fuyuki has won the WEW heavyweight title, and all the foreign heels are, celebrating and everything. And they also introduce a new heel manager for the group, Mr. Kid. He's going to be like the translator, a cocky little small guy. Just he's there to help the foreigners translate and everything, but he's going to play this heel character along. So it's like a bad copy of the ECW Japan from 2 years ago that didn't work out 2 years ago.
And excuse me. So with Mr. Ganosuke's leg broken, is there any kind of panic? Because you wrote that you thought that was when they probably should have just gave it up. So, like, what type of panic does his injury cause?
Yeah, I mean, when that happened back in 2002, I knew FMW's dead. Like, there's, and that's me following it and being the biggest supporter and everything. And I remember that night going, FMW is not going to make it. And I mean, I went over a couple episodes ago. They probably should have closed down in 2000, late 2000, early 2001. But I knew in 2002, this promotion's not going to make it because you just lost Hayabusa long term. And now you lost Mr. Ganosuke, who was probably the number 2 or number 3 top draw, and had, at the moment, at least he had some momentum going because, hey, he was Hayabusa's friend, and there was some legitimacy. He actually got himself over as a babyface after the Hayabusa injury, and now you've lost him. So now who do you have? You have Tetsuhiro Kuroda, who was a failed experiment a year ago as a heel, and I mean, kind of a bland babyface. And then you have Mama Sasaki, who's not ready at all. I mean, he's a good worker, but he's not a top guy. So now you don't even really have like a babyface side to be, to challenge against Kodo Fuyuki and the foreigners. So, like I said, I knew at this time, FMW was not going to make it. It's just too many bumps in the road at this point. And, but Shoichi Arai really did try. I mean, as far as panic and everything, it was like I said, it was a bump on the road, but it didn't change anything as far as Shoichi Arai trying to keep the company going. He ended up missing a couple shows as a result, so it didn't really do any long-term effects as far as drawing because FMW wasn't going to make it much longer because Shoichi Arai, all the last couple months of being in debt, was going to catch up to him.
When FMW was born in 88 and 89, we talked about how the magazines really helped them. They wanted more promotions to cover and stuff. Does the industry, the magazines, the companies, the venues that they run, is the industry aware that FMW is in such dire straits?
They know it's bad. They're not reporting it. I may mention the magazines. FMW is now kind of at the back of the magazine. New Japan, All Japan were always bigger, but now there's Noah. So that's a bigger promotion. Then you have 01, which is like this interpromotional, multi-promotional promotion going on right now that it's kind of hot with Shinya Hashimoto and everything. And so on top of, hey, Onita still has his fan base. So FMW is now dropping to, they have a pretty good deal as far as being on Sky Perfect TV, and they're making, they've made millions of dollars or over $1 million being on Sky Perfect TV, which they used right away. But they're pretty much just a low indie at this point. They're gonna, and we'll talk about here in a second, they're gonna start working with DDT, which at the time is not even big enough to work a Corrigan Hall show because they want to get the good rub that DDT has, the momentum that DDT has. They want to get some of that. So they're, nobody necessarily knows when FMW is closing, but I mean, people knew it's closing soon, or they're gonna need to be sold, or something's gonna happen because. Yeah, just looking at the attendance, looking at the house shows and everything, I mean, you just look at how empty the buildings are without Hayabusa, and especially the non-Corrigan Hall shows. This promotion can't live like this.
One other note, when you were saying about all of the different companies coming up, you also had Pride coming up. The MMA got big. So yeah, they
Yeah,
go
and
from
just
like
Japanese wrestling itself was going down. I mean, that was the whole thing about why FNW started the decline to begin with. It's because just the Japanese wrestling bubble had declined, had bursted, and now as a result, there's more promotions, and like you said, yeah, Pride, all the MMA is really hot at this time. So wrestling itself is not hot, and so New Japan, All Japan they're all these promotions, they're losing money. There's more of them, and there's nothing FMW's doing that's catching attention. And now you don't even have Hayabusa, who, like I said, at least he brought in a separate fan base to at least help out as far as attendance goes.
Mm-hmm. All right. Right after this show, they announced that they're going to be postponing their January 21st show in Hiroshima. Full disclosure, FMW, they only run 4 shows in the entire year here. When they postpone these shows, are they losing money by doing this? And like, what was the main reason? Did they just assume it was going to be just a giant bomb of a show?
Yeah, they were just promoters and everything. That March 31st show, or sorry, the January 21st show would actually end up happening on March 31st. They would reschedule it. They just at that moment they just felt like they didn't want to run a show, that's going to lose money, and let's push it back. And they actually had planned out a tour for March, for the last week of March or so. So they were going to run a legitimate tour in March, but for January and February, they just did not have anything that they felt was going to be a successful tour. So they kept the touring to a minimum for these first 2 months of the promotion. And like I said, ironically enough, it would be, that would end up being all they would end up doing.
I know this is such a stupid question to ask, but like, are there efforts to bring in new talent, or it's so sad to see it go down just so quickly. I mean, I guess they brought in the American guys, but nobody thinks that the company is going to fold, I guess. Okay. Okay, going on. Despite all this, they are making arrangements that they plan on having the May 5th Kawasaki show. That is planned. And to build up hype, Fuyuki starts to challenge Keiji Muto. Fuyuki has a match against Kawada in February, and they're hoping to build up. If Fuyuki beats Kawada, then his match.
Muto was going to take on Kawada in February.
Okay, I'm sorry. Like, was this match already locked in when Fuyuki starts to issue the challenges?
No, it wasn't locked in, but they had the inside out that they think that they felt it could happen. We talked about how Fuyuki had that relationship with Tenryu, and so he had the context to be able to and Fuyuki had just ran the Real World Tag Team Tournament back in November, so Fuyuki had toured with them and everything. So Fuyuki felt like he could get this match to happen as the big draw. Now the thing is I don't believe so I don't think it actually was like, hey, this is official or anything like that. But this was, we could get this match to happen. But I don't think it was actually going to be the main event, because I just can't picture, because Muto was going to win over Fuyuki. There was no doubt about that. But I just couldn't see the show ending. FMW was never going to end on a big, the outside babyface beating the heel, like for their biggest show of the year. So I would imagine, if fantasy booking and for predicting something that never happened, I would guess that would end up being a semi-main event, and they would have had like a Garuda or something actually main event. I mean, it didn't happen, so they probably didn't even think it out. But I can't imagine just Keiji Muto winning the main event at Kawasaki Stadium against Fuyuki as the top match. But I could see it as a semi-main event, kind of like how they did the Fuyuki Tenryu semi-main event at the previous Kawasaki Stadium show.
It's okay. Going on January 20th, there was a show at Kurokan Hall promoted by the Rainbow Company. What was Rainbow, and what was the show like?
Yeah, so that's Kazuhiro Hatayama. He was a former wing referee, so he decided he wanted to start promoting shows, and so he it's a lot of wing former wing talent and everything. So he promotes a show at Corrigan Hall, and pretty much the two top matches are Mitsuhiro Matsunaga taking on Yoshiaki Fujiwara in kind of like this wing versus battle arts slash PF Fujiwara Gumi promotion. So it's Matsunaga comes to the ring and he's covered in barbed wire. He has covered himself in barbed wire completely, and he wants to have this match with Fujiwara with the barbed wire wrapped around him. Well, that doesn't last too long, and eventually, after he kind of gets dropped down, he ends up feeling the pain of the barbed wire. He has to end up taking it off and everything, and Fujiwara bust him open, and they use a barbed wire bat. Matsunaga's cut open and stuff, and Matsunaga actually throws some thumbtacks in the ring. And again, most would probably know, but Fujiwara is like an old time mat skills, style wrestler. He's not a hardcore wrestler at all. So Matsunaga drops down onto the thumbtacks and is like, let's mat wrestle. Come on, while he's laying in the thumbtacks. Well, Fujiwara ends up kicking him and then trying to like mat wrestle him while Matsunaga's already down on, with thumbtacks sticking to his back. And so another idea for Matsunaga that didn't really work out. And then eventually, Fujiwara would just end up headbutting Matsunaga, and Matsunaga would just drop down to the ground, and the referee would call for the match and would stop the match and give the win to Fujiwara. And Mr. Pogo would end up coming out and challenging Fujiwara. And so there's a bunch of the Battle Arts guys with Fujiwara come out, a bunch of the old wing guys would come out, and they would actually set up a match, a 10-man like Captain Falls match between Fujiwara and Mr. Pogo for March, because they would run a show at the Differ Ariake, which would result in Fujiwara actually making Mr. Pogo tap out to a Fujiwara armbar. But so anyway, so after that, all that happens, the wing guys are still in the ring from kind of that little mini fight with the Battle Arts guys. And the next match, the main event of the show, is Hito, Shoji Nakamaki, and Masayoshi Motegi, who are all former wing guys. They're going to take on Atsushi Onita, the Great Sasuke, and Hideki Osaka, and they come to the ring, and it's the Onita brawl type match, and fighting all over the building. But Mr. Pogo stays around, and he ends up attacking Onita. So they're pretty much bringing back the Onita Pogo feud here. And like I said, Pogo is interfering and everything, and ends up grabbing Onita. Well, he ends up, I think it was Motegi charges at Onita, but Onita moves out of the way, and Motegi hits Pogo, and Onita eventually ends up hitting Motegi with a Thunderfire powerbomb, and so Onita, Sasuke, and Hideki Osaka get the win. But as far as, like I said, the Rainbow promotion, it was like I said, it had wing roots and everything. It was, try and get the wing guys some bookings and everything. The Mickey Ibaragi promotion had just happened. A couple of those shows had happened in 2001 and were somewhat successful. So probably a former wing guy saw potential in making money, and they ran a couple more shows. They ran another show, like I said, in March 2002 with the main event of Matsunaga versus Kanemaru in a lights out death match. And then they would run again at Corrigan Hall in 2003 before Hatayama would end up pretty much just stopping the promotion after 3 shows.
Yeah, I remember because Honma wrestled on one of those shows, and that's how I first.
Yeah, he
saw
wrestled
them.
on this show. Yeah. He ended up taking on Masato Tanaka. It was kind of it was there was a trial series where he ended up like taking on like 3 guys on the same night and everything, like Kanemaru,
That's
Tanaka, and everything.
Yeah, and I remember when I had the tape as a kid, I just kept thinking, it's like a lot of hardcore and deathmatch, but it's Rainbow Promotions. Kind of funny name.
Yeah.
So, so that goes on. FMW. One second, I just want to double check. So they held a show, which was they held their final show, February 4th at Kuroken Hall. I'll let you go over the show, but how was the show overall? The final show.
So they actually announced a sellout crowd of 2150. And again, I mean, these last two Korakuen Hall shows, by no means were they like, oh my goodness, look at this. I mean, it wasn't heartbreaking like those February and March shows of 2001 where you look at them and go, oh my goodness, Korakuen Hall is empty. So I mean, I don't know if it's the foreigners or just there was this loyal fan base of FMW, and even Hayabusa said, please support, keep supporting FMW. That was his last words before being stretchered off. He wanted FMW to still be around for him to come back to. Well, well, anyway, so Korakuen still did decent. Tokyo, there's still, somewhat of a fan base and everything for the Korakuen Hall shows. It's just those house shows, which, like I said, they had to cancel or postpone or, run very few. But the few that they ran were just horrible, just drew nothing. But like I said, they announced 2150 for the final show, and so I made mention of this. They decided to start working with DDT and actually IWA Japan as well. Kodo Fuyuki, like I said, DDT at this point had been a small little independent promotion based off of kind of that WWE style, WWF style at the time. And they're pretty much like I said, like kind of running at clubs, and they would eventually end up running a Korakuen in a couple months, but they were never thought of as like even a promotion that could ever run Korakuen Hall. It's just this small little goofy independent. Well, it's kind of got some momentum and everything. Mikami is pretty hot. He's kind of got like a Jeff Hardy gimmick. Senzahiro Takagi, he's has like a Steve Austin gimmick. So there's a little momentum and everything. Well, Fuyuki picks up on this. Hey, there's this little small promotion, and they're kind of doing what we're doing, but they're actually popular from it. I mean, there's they're going up and we're going down. We're losing money, they're making money, and we're pretty much doing the same thing. So let's work together. At this time, still FMW is a bigger company, but DDT is on the rise, and obviously FMW is not. And so Fuyuki works an agreement with DDT where on the DDT shows it's announced Super Uchu Power, who had a alien gimmick. He was Koshihiro Kimura, who had worked Wing and FMW in the past. He announces that Kodo Fuyuki is now the FMW commissioner. Or sorry, the DT commissioner. And that causes this big ovation from the small crowd when Kodo Fuyuki comes out and pretty much declares war on DDT. So he's now going to be the heel commissioner for DDT. And he ends up helping out Chakoba Mukai win the DDT Iron Man Heavyweight Championship, which was like the WWF Hardcore title, which was defended 24/7. If you could pin them, no matter if it was a ring or anywhere, that's where that is Falls Count Anywhere type style, pretty much total taken off of the hardcore belt. And so Fuyuki ends up helping Chakoba Mukai win the DDT Iron Man Heavyweight title from Senzahiro Takagi. So they have a rematch at the FMW show on February 4th. So Senzahiro Takagi makes his FMW debut, his one and only time on the last FMW show. He has a match with Chakoba Mukai, and they brawl all over the building, including fighting in the men's bathroom. And I mean, it's a comedy gimmick, and I mean, it's a comedy style match, but I mean, it's decent and everything. Before Senzahiro Takagi would eventually end up getting the win with a Stone Cold Stunner, and so Takagi ends up winning the belt in his only FMW match. He wins back his DDT Iron Man title. And then, like I said, IWA Japan and FMW were now feuding at this time. So Gorgeous Matsuno, who probably most would know from old-time DDT shows, he comes out. He's a rich actor. He ends up coming out, challenging Shoichi Arai, as well as Asano from the IWA Japan owner. He ends up coming out as well. And like I said, they challenge, Shoichi Arai comes out and everything. And now FMW, they declare war on FMW. So now FMW is declaring, is working with these small little promotions. IWA Japan at this time, it's a very small promotion. It's nothing like the 1995 IWA Japan that ran Kawasaki Stadium, or even the 1997 one we talked about that could run Corrigan Hall regularly and have these. This is a complete. They're in complete rebuilding mode at this point. They have no real top stars, but FMW is agreeing to work with them. But obviously it doesn't go very far. And then the semi-main event of the show is Kentaro Kanemaru, Mama Sasaki, and Goemon taking on Vic Grimes. Paula Duke, who was an American independent wrestler, not the... they said he was related to the Joe LeDuc, who was a Canadian wrestler. So I think actually Paul LeDuc was a Canadian wrestler as well. But Joe LeDuc actually had worked in FMW like in early 1990 as well. And so Vic Grimes, Paul LeDuc, and Mitsunobu Kikuzawa, Kikutaro without a mask. They have another brawl and everything. Goemon ends up getting busted or cut open. Vic Grimes, he ends up having this weapon where it's kind of like 5 pizza cutters attached to each other, and you can wrap it around your hand and everything. And so he uses that on Goemon and just cuts open Goemon big time here. But so pretty much, like I said, it's just a brawl and everything. It goes 20 minutes, and then Mama Sasaki ends up getting the win over Mitsunobu Kikuzawa. He ends up with a power slam. So FMW finally gets one win over the foreigners. And again, they're really pushing the heels, the foreign heels, big time here. And just Fuyuki and everything. And I understand Fuyuki's booking. It's like we got to get the heels over to eventually let the baby faces get the win. But the problem is nobody even knows, wait, who's the top baby face? Is Tetsuhiro Kuroda the top baby face again? That's the only one, but he's not even doing anything. At least a year ago, there were major segments. He had a lot of airtime and the promotion was kind of built around him. Well, now the promotion's not even built around him. He's just kind of there, and he's just the number 2 baby face, and I guess and quasi number 1 because there is no number 1. But so the main event of the show and the last ever FMW match, because of Mr. Ganosuke's injury, it was supposed to be a WEW tag team title match because Kuroda and Ganosuke were the champions. Well, now the belts have to be vacated because Ganosuke, his leg is broken. And now they're going to bring in Sabu to team up with Tetsuhiro Kuroda against Kodo Fuyuki and the Sandman. So now it's just, the winner is the WEW tag team champions. Sabu ends up coming to the ring with a Hayabusa mask on and a fake tattoo around his chest that Hayabusa had as well, in memory of Hayabusa, or out of respect to Hayabusa. And it's an okay match. Nothing great or anything. It's Sabu ends up hitting an Arabian press, and he at least connects all his spots and everything. Sabu does a good job here, but eventually Kodo Fuyuki would end up hitting a lariat on Kuroda, and eventually Kodo Fuyuki would end up putting away Kuroda, and for the very last FMW match, Kodo Fuyuki and the Sandman would defeat Tetsuhiro Kuroda and Sabu. Like I said, when Fuyuki would put away Kuroda with the lariat. And so Fuyuki and Sandman are celebrating. They're drinking beer. Like I said, Mr. Kid, this new heel manager, is out with them. Fuyuki has this new woman with him as well, like a manager and everything. Like I said, they're all celebrating. Eventually, Mama Sasaki would end up coming out and clearing, and he would announce to the crowd that he was actually going to work a Pride show coming up on February 22nd. And so it's pretty much like a tryout for new Pride fighters. And Mama Sasaki had sumo wrestling background, so he had a legitimate fighting background. So he's going to try and see if he can make it into Pride, because like we talked about, Pride is a huge deal at this point. And so, this is going to be his tryout to become a legitimate big time fighter and everything. But so that's the last announcement through FMW. Pretty much the show ends with Mama Sasaki, Sabu, and Tetsuhiro Kuroda, just raising their hands and everything, and that would be the end of the show. And they would announce that the next show would be on March 10th at Corrigan Hall, but it would end up being the last ever FMW show.
So I have a few questions. The first one, so why are they making the decision to fly in foreign talent versus using, trying to get, DDT guys or something?
Because they still want to try and possibly draw. Like I said, the Sandman, still had somewhat of a fan base and everything of people that knew him. He was around, the Japanese knew ECW wrestlers from 1997. That's why FMW brought them in 97, 98, because there was a fan base that was interested in seeing them. And so, now you can pick them. Now you can get them without having to deal with Paul Heyman, without having to negotiate. This guy has to win. This guy has to be put over. You can't lose to him. Okay, fine. I'll have Balls Mahoney lose to Hayabusa, but that's it. You're not dealing with Paul Heyman or any of those negotiations. You could just straight out book them. So it was a lot easier process as a result. And like I said, they still were over. Sandman was over. Sabu was still over. They're still at this point, they're not broken down or anything. They're still pretty good workers. And so it's just something to help possibly draw these Corrigan Hall shows, or help at least maybe pull up the gate of a house show or something, because they had them tour, or at least that one of their show, the one other show that they would run besides Corrigan Hall, they would have them wrestle as well. So it's one of those things where this is going to draw better, because DDT guys, they're going to draw, they might draw for their own promotion a little bit, but they're still just running like the Tokyo Club Atom, which is a 300-seat building, pretty much like running Shinkiba. They're not like established draws or anything, but the Sandman and Sabu, those are established draws that could possibly help, at least possibly, pick something up help draw a Corrigan Hall show.
One thing I want to know is, we've talked about the relationship between Hayabusa and Sabu before. With them having such similar styles, like, what is their relationship like after he's injured?
Sabu loved Hayabusa. They call each other brother and everything. So, especially after the injury, we've talked about before. Sabu, Hayabusa was the Sheik's pretty much like his boy and everything. Like the Sheik loved Eiji Ezeki, and so Ezaki was always around Sabu and everything at the beginning, and idolized somewhat Sabu and respected him greatly. And the only even issue that they ever even really had was Sabu was kind of pissed off that Hayabusa's look was so much similar to him 94, 95, maybe 96 or so, when they weren't like interacting with each other anymore. So that was the only thing Sabu wasn't a big fan of. But I think even before the injury they had made up, and like I said, and after the injury they loved each other. Every time Sabu would come to Japan, they would meet up. Sabu would end up meeting up with Hayabusa just a week before he died, and just gave him a kiss on the cheek and said, "I love you." And Sabu's girlfriend would go, "Why'd you do that?" And Sabu's like, "I just felt like it." And then, I just felt like I needed to, because I'd tell him I love him. And then, Hayabusa died a week later, and Sabu's like, "That's why I did it."
Okay. So, going forward, so as we said, this was FMW's final show. This is the moment, like, I was telling you when we started this is what I've always this is the main event. So, can you walk us through what happened on February 14th?
Okay, so I'm going to try and this is based off Shoichi Arai's autobiography that he wrote prior to his passing. So he wrote a whole chapter about this last day of FMW. And so I'm going to try and kind of like transcribe it as best I can to make sense, and to make it to where it doesn't go an hour or anything as well. So so Shoichi Arai at this point is so just, he's so just, okay, I got to pay this guy to pay this guy to pay this guy. It's, I need to make money, or I need a loan so I can pay back this person I owe this money to. So he is just like, today is just another day of just making sure I keep everything afloat. And I before I even mention, I do want to make, let's say, Shoichi Arai was trying to sell the company. It wasn't something where he just was, I'm just going to keep FMW going the way it's going, and eventually it'll turn around without Hayabusa or anything like that. He was trying to sell FMW. But nobody would take it because, wait, why are you going to spend money on a promotion that, I mean, as of, right now is probably about $3 million in debt. So, that's not something a business that has the money to buy FMW is going to take up, even though they're not taking the money, that's, the debted money, they're taking a promotion that's not hot. It's losing money. They're going to pay money pretty much to lose money. So he cannot find a buyer or anything like that. So he's just trying his best to just keep it afloat, just make sure it doesn't go bankrupt or anything like that. So right now he's paying 6 companies interest to not cash the check. So he's giving 6 different companies checks, just going, hey, but I'm going to give you interest. Just you're getting more money not to cash these checks that I owe you and everything. So on February 14th, he has to go to the bank to convince them to not cash the checks that were given to them as well. So he's going to the bank as well, because some of these places have given their checks, but he's, but he can't. He is making sure that they're not being put through or anything like that. So, and right now, like I said, he's already given his car up for interest as well. So that's keep FMW going. He's putting up all his belongings and everything. He's had put up his house up already. So right now he has about $500 to $1,000 or $500 to $1,000 on interest. So he's gonna have to pay $10,000 interest to extend the checks from being cashed. So but there is a bright side to him. So he's thinking, okay, everything's going horrible, but I'm in the talks of getting a $100,000 fund from a bank on February 15th. So if I could just make it today, if I can make it through February 14th, I'll get $100,000 and everything, that would be, that could keep me going for a little bit longer and everything. I just need this, I need this fund from this bank. Well, he ends up getting a call from one of the loan sharks. And they're upset that they had not been paid. One of the loan sharks had not been paid their interest from a previous loan, and he was supposed to pay this interest the previous day, and that's where everything goes to hell pretty much, because he didn't have the money to pay someone that he had promised just the loan of, hey, I'm going to pay you this money just to not cash this check. So the loan shark doesn't cash the check, and he doesn't get the money. So that's what screwed this all up. So Arai asked that loan shark to wait to meet because he needed to meet with 6 other companies, but the loan shark requested that he visit him. No, you got to meet me, Arai. I'm not going to just let you do whatever you want over the phone and, okay, sure, I'll wait. No, we need to talk about this face to face. So Arai meets with the loan shark and thinking, okay, I just got to get this. I'll handle it and everything will be okay. I'll just, and I'll get to the bank, make sure that nothing's none of the checks are cashed or anything like that. So he meets with the loan shark, and the loan shark has so many questions, it ends up taking hours to be able to get out of this conversation. So him being able to meet up with these 6 other companies and everything it won't end up happening as a result. So he used the loan sharks because he could not get the loans from them, and they just make mention. He's using the loan sharks because they don't have a data system like companies offering loans or anything like that. So he can go from loan shark to loan shark and just keep getting money from them. Whereas if he went to like a business that loaned you money, they're going to be able to detect, wait, they're all sent, hey, this guy just borrowed money from this guy. Obviously, he's not going to have the money if he's borrowing from another company. But with loan sharks, they don't have that system. So he's just trying to go from loan shark to loan shark to get as much money from them as he can, and then try and pay back the loan shark afterwards based off the money he's getting from another loan shark. Does that make sense where we are right now?
Yeah, robbing Peter to pay Paul over and over.
Pretty much. Yeah. So okay, so he was asked how many people was he borrowing from that loan shark that he's talking to, and Arai has to lie. No, I'm not borrowing from anyone. No, but the loan shark goes, I don't trust you. I'm not going to leave. So so this loan shark's not letting him leave or anything like that. And he's going, who are you borrowing from? And Arai's having to lie. I'm not borrowing from anyone. So then the loan shark goes, I'm not leaving until you tell me who you're borrowing from. Well, then Arai makes a huge mistake. He opens the can of worms and he tells that loan shark, I borrowed from this other loan. I borrowed money from this other loan shark. So the problem was that loan shark knew the other loan shark. So I'm going to go off of Rye's book here. He obviously wasn't going to give names or anything like that. So he just started giving them letters and everything. So this loan shark that he's talking to is loan shark A, the one that won't let him leave. He is, he's the one that made him come over and meet with him and discuss this. And Arai ends up going, okay, fine. For you to let me leave, I also borrow from loan shark B. Well, like I said, loan shark A knew loan shark B. Well, then loan shark B ends up getting a call from loan shark A and shows up 20 minutes later. So now there's two loan sharks that trying to be like, what's up, Arai? What, where's our money? You haven't paid for me. And now, now they know about each other. The whole thing about the getting from the loan sharks was they didn't know about each other. Like, if he had used a legitimate loan system. So they end up exchanging information, loan shark A and loan shark B, with each other. And they want the money for, they want the interest money. Hey, the money that we promised, we weren't going to pay for your checks and or to cash your checks and everything. We want that money right now. We're not letting you go until you pay us. Well, like I may mention, Arai has only, he's poor. I mean, he's given up all his money to keep FMW going. He only has $10 in his wallet right now. So, what can he do? Like, it's not like he can just pay them money and here you go, let me go. So, Arai ends up telling them that if they don't let him go, then another company is going to cash that check and that he was offered, and they won't be able to collect any money because FMW is going to go bankrupt. So these checks are going to be no good if Arai isn't let go now because, okay, you want this money, but if you keep me here, then FMW is going to go bankrupt and all these checks are no good. So Arai begs them to let him go. Please let me go. And he writes them an interest check, which was $2,500 each that were owed for waiting, so that he writes pretty much, look, you're getting the money, but you can't cash this, this money because, again, FMW is going to go bankrupt. These checks won't be good if you cash them. So then they agreed, but they want Arai to sort the money situation out with the other company on the phone in front of them. Problem was another loan shark that he was dealing with. So he's going, hey, I'm dealing with this company to get this loan to be able to pay you guys. I need to talk to this company. I need to talk to the company to be able to get this money so I can pay. So money can go into the bank account so you guys can get your money. Problem was, it was another loan shark that he would have to talk to. Well, he doesn't want them to know that there's another loan shark out there and everything like that. So loan shark A wants him to call the company and directly transfer $5,000 into their account instead of Arai. So they would both get paid. So, they're both owed $2,500 on the interest. And so Arai's going, I want to talk to this other, I need to talk to this other company so you get the money. Well, they don't trust Arai. So they're going, you need to pay, when you talk to this guy, you need to get us the money sent to us instead. So Arai would actually call the IWA president, Asano, and making it seem like he was talking to one of the like a loan guy, a loan officer, and everything like that. So Arai talks to Asano, and Asano ends up agreeing to send him $15,000, which is $10,000 more than then that they asked for $5,000. Asano is giving them $15,000, but he used a bank counter instead of an ATM, so they would not get the money right away. So they got to wait a little while. It's not just going straight into their account or anything like that. So Arai is very thankful. We talked about that Arai and Asano relationship through IWA Japan. That's right there. I mean, that was a big time help, that what Asano was willing to do for Arai, because they had been working together and everything. And Asano understood the situation and was very kind of him. Problem was, like I said, he gave $15,000 when they were only asking for $5,000. Well, they ended up taking all the $15,000 because they go, well, we might not ever see this money, this actual money, that we're owed. So they want 5. He gives them 15. Well, they end up just taking the 15. 15 is just gone like that. So Arai goes, okay, so they're gonna let Arai go now. Okay, fine. They've been paid off. Arai should be good. So now he needs to go he needs to go speak with another loan shark. Well, they kind of realize, wait, what if he goes to another loan shark? And so they don't want him going to go screw over another loan shark or anything like that. So they tell a guy to follow Arai when he's leaving and everything, so that he's not going to speak with the loan. So, it'll be reported back to him if he speaks with if he's speaking with another loan shark to try and screw money out of them. Well, that's what Arai was trying to do. He was trying to get with a loan shark and everything to get more money. And so they sent a watchdog out for him, pretty much. And so he gets this guy that's with Arai, with the loan sharks. He ends up following Arai. He ends up getting in his car, and they take off. And so to make sure that he's not going to get in touch with any other loan shark or, try and screw them out of the money. Their trust for him is completely gone. So Arai goes, well, I can't meet up with the loan shark now. So he comes up with this plan to meet up with the great Kojika at his office in Shinjuku. And he was asked the watchdog to wait downstairs so Arai can get away from him while he's pretending to have a wrestling meeting. So he's going, okay, I'm just meeting with Big Japan. We're having this deal and everything like that. We're having a working relationship. Just stay down here on the first floor. I'm going to go up the elevator and everything like that and have a wrestling meeting. So Arai shows up into the great Kojika's meeting room and goes, I need your meeting room right now. I need to use it. And great Kojika goes, okay, he understands the situation and everything like that. So all these hours that Arai had been with these loan sharks and everything, all these other loan sharks are calling him. He had 40 missed calls on his cell phone, and over 20 plus of them were loan sharks he had borrowed from. So he spent more than an hour apologizing to all these loan sharks in the great Kojika's boardroom or meeting room, and getting the loan sharks to agree not to cash that check because it will end up collapsing FMW. So until he called, so now he ends up calling who Shoichi Arai calls Loan Shark D. Loan Shark D, because Loan Shark D was calling Arai while he was with Loan Shark A and Loan Shark B. Well, Loan Shark D is going, why didn't you answer my call earlier? I'm not going to accept your apology or anything like that. I want you to come to my office and explain to me, what's going on, Arai. Well, Loan Shark D is in Shinjuku, which is where Arai is right now. It's just down the street, so he's not that far or anything like that. But again, there's that watchdog downstairs, and so Arai ends up asking to borrow one of the Big Japan staff, so together they can pretend like he needs to go to a wrestling meeting with him. And so Arai, one of the Big Japan staff members, and the loan shark end up getting in a taxi and going to this other building, and Arai ends up meeting with Loan Shark D, and as well as with the Big Japan staffer. The Big Japan staffer and the watchdog, they stay downstairs in the lobby. So Arai has now fooled this watchdog of one of the loan sharks to be able to have a meeting with another loan shark, which was the whole thing of these loan sharks are on to Arai. So he got Loan Shark D, who had already taken his check to the bank and not have the money transferred until the next day. Problem was, so now, all right, everyone's agreed and everything like that. Well, now Arai needs to call, to not cash the check or anything like that. Problem is they called the bank too late. Now it's 4:30. The bank closed at 4, and the bank from one of the previous checks had been cashed. So Arai ends up. That's a strike, pretty much. And in Japan, two bad checks, or two separate separate timing periods of a bad check, result in bankruptcy. So this is strike 1. So because Arai, ended up getting in such a bad situation with all these loan sharks taking time and everything, ended up missing the bank from being able to not cash the checks that had been presented to them. So like I said, so that's strike 1 on FMW right there, a bad check. Well, it ends up turning out that actually 2 checks have been bounced at the same time. So for a total of $20,000 or $20,400, it turned out that loan shark C, who Arai calls him, who had earlier agreed not to cash the check, had ended up cashing it in anyway. So they, like I said, those checks bounce, strike 1 on FMW. And things are about to get really bad. So Arai speaks with the FMW office, ends up calling the FMW office, lets them know one of the checks just bounced. And Loan Shark D overhears that conversation about Loan Shark C's check bouncing. Well, Loan Shark D wants to bring Arai to Loan Shark C because they know each other, so he can discuss this check bouncing. So he picks up Arai by his arms to take him to Loan Shark C, just physically grabs Arai and picks him up and carries him. You're coming with me. And so Arai tells the watchdog that they are going to, they're going downstairs and everything. Arai tells the watchdog that they are going to an FMW sponsor, which happened to be the same building as Loan Shark C. Well, when Arai gets into the car and with Loan Shark D and the Big Japan staffer, the watchdog screams that this is his car, and he ends up driving off with Shoichi Arai's car. So Loan Shark D, the Big Japan staffer, and Arai, they're about to get into the car. The watchdog ends up just jumping in the driver's seat and taking off. And the loan shark is like, what the hell is this? What's going on? So this caused they're still right by Loan Shark D's office and everything. So this caused about 4 or 5 guys to come out from Loan Shark D. They heard screaming and everything. A car just speed off. And they're come out, what the hell's going on? Well, what ends up happening is the watchdog ends up reporting to Loan Shark A and Loan Shark B, hey, this guy, he ended up going to another loan shark. The watchdog kind of picked up what Arai was doing. This is bull. He's, speaking with other loan sharks and everything like that. So the watchdog ends up coming back with Arai, in Arai's car, with Loan Shark A and Loan Shark B. So Arai lets Loan Shark A and Loan Shark B, lets him know that the checks have bounced, and from Loan Shark C and Loan Shark D, who they don't know. So now you have Loan Shark A and Loan Shark B from earlier. You have Loan Shark C and Loan Shark D from just now, those 2 different groups, and they're all pissed off at Arai. A and B begin screaming at him for allowing these checks to bounce, knowing there's no money in the account. Loan Shark D grabs Arai by the shirt collar, and he wants to bring Arai with him. But A and B they want Arai. All of them want Arai dead pretty much at this point. They're so pissed off at him. So now, so now they're all pissed off at Arai, and they all agree, about 10 total men, to bring Arai to a cafe. But this is to sort this out. But this is the loan shark's trick, because if they brought him to an office or anything like that, that would be considered imprisonment, and which is illegal in Japan. So they can't just bring him to an office or anything like that. 10 different loan shark men trying to get answers and stuff. So they bring him to a cafe, and and so Arai comes in and with these 10 other guys, and everyone's looking at him. You're just a modern cafe, and you just see 10 looking, Yakuza looking all dressed and everything, and then Shoichi Arai, who is he just doesn't know. At this point, it's just everything is spinning in a circle, and he's just done for at this point. Everything's falling apart. And so this is in space, like I said, so the loan sharks can talk to him, but it's not imprisonment. And so Loan Shark C shows up, and all of them, occupy a corner in the cafe, and they all go, okay, we want money now. We want the money. You don't have money. Okay, we need something. What about the wrestling ring? The wrestling ring needs to be, needs money. We need, we could sell the wrestling ring for money. You need somehow to get us the money. Arai is begging him, please don't take the ring. That's our stage. Without a ring, we're not a promotion anymore. And the loan shark goes, are you an idiot? FMW's done, okay? It doesn't matter if it's our right to take your property because you owe us money and we don't trust that you're ever gonna pay us anymore. So, but Arai is like, please, no, not the ring. He's still, with all this, still, with one strike of bankruptcy, it's not officially over, but he doesn't want to give that ring up or anything like that. Well, they end up calling calling an antique dealer. How much is how much is the ring? And the antique dealer's like, the FMW ring's not worth anything. It's so big and bulky. What are you gonna do with it? So it's not worth anything. And Arai is like, oh, thank goodness, I did not want to sell that ring. So now another loan shark, who Arai calls Loan Shark E, shows up. So now there's 5 different sets of loan sharks that Arai has borrowed money from. He's been contacted after all this. Loan Shark D wants him to write the name down of all the loan sharks he has borrowed money from. And Arai ends up writing over 20 loan sharks. And one of them goes, I thought it could be 10, but 20? Such a shameless man. So they have no respect for him. Being able to try and screw over 20 different of their, other loan sharks, trying to borrow all this money that they're, and then probably never pay back to them. Because, they're giving them this pay, pretty much, like I said, he's writing these checks and then saying, hey, I'm going to give you this money to not cash the check. But then he's not having the money to pay them back the interest, to not cash the checks. So the new loan shark E, is upset because he's not even gotten any money yet, not even the interest money or anything. And FMW is about to go bankrupt, and he's not paid anything. So he's really pissed off. Well, Loan Shark A and Loan Shark B, they decide, okay, you know what? We got our $15,000 from Asano earlier. They're not saying Asano, but all right, we got our $15,000 earlier. We're just gonna call this. We're done. We got as much money as we're gonna get from this guy and everything. But then, so they leave. So now it's C, D, and E. Well, then Senmu Yoshida, he ends up calling Arai. That's the FMW vice president. He had done, some matches and been the evil heel vice president in FMW the late 2001. He calls Arai, and he's like, Arai, there's a situation going on here at the FMW office. We're surrounded by loan sharks. So they asked to call so Arai goes, call all the FMW wrestlers, protect the office. So all the FMW wrestlers besides Mama Sasaki and the dojo guys like Senpal and Makeda and the young boys, everyone at the FMW dojo's not called, but everyone that has like a regular house or apartment or something like that, they're called. Kanamura, the Goemon, Ricky Fuji, all that stuff. They're called to protect the office from the loan sharks. Eventually a sponsor is contacted. One of the FMW sponsors calls or gets contacted, and he comes by and he gets a signature of a written pledge that they're going to be paid what Arai is owed. So that ends Arai's horrible interactions with all the loan sharks. It's the sponsor going, you're going to get paid. Here's my signature that you will get paid. Okay. So he ends up taking Arai with him. Arai is finally let go. He brings Arai to the office. Fuyuki, Kanamura, the other wrestlers are at the office and everything like that after being called to protect it. And Arai apologizes to the wrestlers. I'm so sorry all this is going on. This is all my fault. Everything I did, I screwed up badly. And he tells them, if another check bounces, then we're going to be officially bankrupt. So then they have this all-night meeting. How are we going to keep FMW going? What can we do? So they're all sitting there coming up with ideas of how we can keep FMW alive. It's not dead yet. We can still keep this going. Arai's only half paying attention to this. He's so just like, oh, my mind is, from everything, dealing with all these loan sharks to the watchdog pretty much taking off with his car, driving off. Then all these, 4 different groups of loan sharks, grabbing him and wanting to pretty much kill him and everything. And so he's not even paying attention to any of these ideas that are going on when Fuyuki gets up and he goes, all these ideas are, what's the point? It's all about the money. And without the money, we can't do anything. And he gives Arai a look like, this is your fault. This is all on you. You did this. We don't have any money, and we're about to die because, FMW is about to go under because of you. And the sponsor who was with Arai tells him, you're going to need to hide from these loan sharks. Arai ends up calling his parents and, to let them know, like, hey, the loan sharks are after me. Well, the loan sharks are already at their house. They've already meeting up with Arai going, hey, we need Arai if he if he's here, he's ours and everything. So Arai ends up spending the night at the office up until about noon on February 15th. He ends up staying the night. He ends up going in the morning. He ends up going to a hotel and sleeping. The sponsor ends up paying for him. And so he's just out of it and everything like that. And like I said, he's just mentally fried, and just after all that and just the last couple months and just all feeling horrible about Hayabusa and everything. Well, Arai ends up checking the bank on February 15th, and again, one of the loan sharks had tried to cash one of the checks, and so that was the second check that ended up bouncing. And so now FMW, Frontier Martial Arts, is now officially bankrupt, over $2 million in debt.
Okay. So my first question is, does FMW have a finance department of any sort?
I don't. I mean, I would imagine that it was just, Fuyuki was just in charge of the money and everything, and he, like, Fuyuki and Nakamura, who had worked for Fuyuki's office and everything, they were in charge of the money and just keeping track of it. So like I said, I've always felt like Fuyuki knew this is going down because he saw the money. He saw how much money in their debt. No one else knew how much they were in debt besides Fuyuki, Nakamura, and Arai. And so, they were in charge, everything like that, as far as keeping up with the money. But, they knew how much Arai was spending and stuff. And like I said, I always kind of thought that Fuyuki was pushing himself, knowing this company is about to go under, and I need to kind of make myself as strong as possible because I'm about to lead a promotion, and I'm about to be the number one guy of my promotion because FMW is about to close down.
It just, and again, I don't want to, it's crazy to me, but it did happen, obviously, but it's just crazy that nobody was aware of this or intervened, that it got so out of hand. Okay, just to go on, so how does everybody find out that it's over?
It got reported all over the websites and everything. Like, I found out through Nikon Sports. It was just something, the FMW wrestlers pretty much knew that day, that had been a part of that meeting, like, this is about to close down. And, Arai probably told them after the second, when he called up and found out that the second check had bounced when he called the bank, he probably called the FMW wrestlers. I know the FMW dojo wrestlers, like I said, Makata, Yoshihito Sasaki, all them, the dojo guys, they didn't know. Kanemaru would end up telling them afterwards and stuff. So, but as far as the public anything knowing, Nikon Sports, all the Tokyo Sports, all the Japanese news, sports websites and everything, newspapers and everything reported it the next day or two. Like I said, I found out that day also just through the internet. It had been reported. So, I mean, it was pretty much common knowledge that day on February 15th after a couple hours that FMW had closed down.
Okay, and what is the, like, are there any good quotes from the people involved, like, Onita, Fuyuki, like what do they say to the press about it?
So Onita ends up getting pretty much saying that he tries to make an angle out of it pretty much, and he proclaims that Nakamura and Fuyuki were embezzling the money from FMW to keep for themselves and everything. But Arai says no, that definitely didn't happen. Only $14,000 were not accounted for out of all the millions of dollars that we were in debt for. Only $14,000 were not accounted for. So if he embezzled any money, Nakamura or Fuyuki, they only embezzled $14,000, which is, I mean, nothing in comparison. Like, why would you even, bother if you're gonna only embezzle that little out of millions? But Onita says, I'm a senator now, and I'm gonna press charges against Fuyuki and Nakamura. They're bad people, and like I said, I'm guessing it's a complete angle. Originally I did think that maybe what Fuyuki was doing was trying to, knowing that the money, this was just a thought I had at the time, but Arai would obviously say it's not true, but I was thinking that they were taking money out of FMW going, well, it's already millions of dollars in debt, this is going under no matter what, we might as well get as much money as we can so that we can start up FMW, another promotion and everything afterwards and stuff. So that was my thought process. Again, if it was only $14,000, that's not enough to start up a whole new promotion or anything like that. So Onita, like I said, he states that he's going to press charges against Nakamura and Fuyuki. He wants to fight them and everything. And Fuyuki, and also he announced. Onita announces that he's gonna bring back FMW. He's gonna bring back the FMW name. He's going to start up his own FMW promotion. Fuyuki announced that he's just going to take all the bookings from all the FMW shows, and he'll continue to promote and be able to keep the FMW guys getting paid, and they're going to fulfill all the FMW shows that had not happened. Like I may mention, they were booked for Corrigan Hall on March 10th, so they're going to have that show. Then they were booked for a tour towards the end of the month, and so Fuyuki takes all those bookings for FMW.
Really quickly, so when he does that, is it as simple as, did they have to pay a deposit to the building and then to change to the what will be the WEW brand? Is it as simple as calling them and saying, hey, it was under that company, but now it's under this company?
Pretty much, because the company is not going to run the show, so that date and that time is now clear and everything. I mean, they got to still spend the money to be able to run the show, obviously, but like I said, FMW is booked for March 10th at Corrigan Hall. Well, now FMW can't run anymore; it's officially bankrupt. So Corrigan Hall now is free, and Fuyuki's going, well, I'll take my show. I know that time slot has been taken, for FMW, but FMW is no more, so I'll take that time slot pretty much. And here's the money to be able to run Corrigan Hall.
Okay. So you had mentioned that Onita was going to start up his own company and all this stuff. What are the status? What is the status of the FMW copyrights, like the name, the video library? What is the status of the wrestler contracts, the assets like the ring, the dojo, and also what is the status of the deal with Tokyo Pop?
So Tokyo Pop deal is completely dead at this point because of FMW closing. There was nothing to work with. They can still sell it and everything, but they didn't have the right to distribute the footage anymore. So as soon as FMW closed down, Tokyo Pop no longer sold any new DVDs. I think they had just came out with, like, the last set was like January 2002 that they came out with DVDs. So then when FMW closed in February, that was it as far as Tokyo Pop goes. The video library, the contracts, at this point, all the wrestlers are freelancers. None of them have a job. I want to make mention, Kanemaru. We've talked about Kanemaru in the past. So he had $120,000 a year contract. It's gone now and everything. And the problem was, that Kanemaru lived a very luxurious lifestyle based off his needs. So he every night would go to a love hotel, pretty much, and and anyone that knows that, it's pretty much it's getting a woman, having a woman set up with you, and you're staying in a nice hotel, paying a lot of money, setting up pretty much for a prostitute each night and having having a really nice hotel with her. So Kanemaru is doing this pretty much every night. So he's going through that money fast. And on top of that, he agreed to pay for Tamakazu Garuda. He's in Japan, and Kanemaru is giving him $1,000 a month because otherwise, Garuda, he's just trapped in Mexico with no money and being sent to him anymore. And so, anyway, so Kanemaru is taking a big hit financially based off. He's used to being paid $120,000. Now he's not getting paid anywhere near that, and he's been spending all that money for years and years. So that's as far as the contracts, and we'll go over the whole Hayabusa thing here in a minute, I'm sure, because that's a whole other aspect that we'll talk about. The video library, that's been a whole thing that many people ask about. So the video library is pretty much, it's broken up into many different layers. Miki Ibaragi owns the very early set of FMW footage. That like the 1990 footage, anything that he was a part of the company with, he had the deal that he owned that footage. So he ended up releasing like the Onita versus Tarzan Goto exploding barbed wire match, the very first exploding barbed wire match. He released that as a DVD years later because he owns that footage. Anything up to like early 1991, Miki Ibaragi owns. Then BMG Victor, they had the video deal from 1991 to 1995. They were able to, that was their footage and everything, and they would lend it off to Onita for his shows. Onita sometimes would show BMG Victor footage, like the Onita versus Hayabusa match, May 5th, 95, or the Onita versus Tenryu match, just like highlights for his big show and stuff. Well, BMG Victor ended up closing down about 2007, 2008 or so. So all that footage, that's been pretty much been picked up by like Sony, with like the European office in Sony. Like it's broken up into so much to where nobody at this moment owns that footage anymore. Same thing for Shiba EMI. They own that footage, that the Hayabusa stuff pretty much, and that's where the Tokyo Pop footage was going to, where they were using the Toshiba EMI. Well, Toshiba EMI is a music company first and everything in Japan. Well, it ended up going under about 7 years ago or so. And again, I forget. I could look it up, but off the top of my head, I don't remember. But again, it's like a big company, but not like a Sony or something like that owns it. But a different branch, and that they don't even probably know they own the footage. So all this FMW footage, at this moment, nobody really owns or knows about and stuff. The only FMW footage that is known, like a specific person owns it, is when FMW went to bankruptcy court. Nobody ever bought the FMW name. No, it's still just it's a company that just nobody owns. Nobody was willing to pay the money, the millions of dollars in debt to own the FMW name. So it's still a dormant company to this day. Nobody owns FMW. But the FMW footage from the DirecTV and the Sky Perfect TV footage from 1998 to 2001 or 2002, it got bought by Tetsuya Yamada, who would end up being the sponsor for Mr. Ganosuke's WMF promotion later in 2002. He would buy the footage. So he owns that, the late, pretty much the entertainment era, DirecTV and Sky Perfect TV footage. And then Samurai TV owns all their footage that they aired of FMW from 1996, 1997, a little bit of 98, 2000, 2001, 2002-ish or so. So they own whatever they aired on 2000, so it is completely broken up. So I give that answer because I get asked that question all the time. Who owns the FMW library and everything? So pretty much nobody at this point other than Tetsuya Yamada. He owns the entertainment era pay-per-views, and then Samurai TV owns their footage that they aired.
One of the debts that we haven't mentioned is that Hayabusa is still in the hospital, and he needs daily care, pretty much round the clock care. With FMW going bankrupt, who's going to be handling the medical bills for him?
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of go over a little bit about just like Hayabusa and just the hospital itself and everything. So prior to the bankruptcy, um, we talked about last episode how Hayabusa had heart surgery, pretty much to remove the germs that were in his heart valve due to just sitting, pretty much just laying in a hospital bed all day, and ended up getting bacteria and very sick and everything. And like I said, he had successful heart surgery, and so he ended up just staying at this hospital, fighting for his life for a little while. So now he's just sitting in the hospital, and after January 6th, he would end up getting an unexpected visitor when he's just sitting there and everything, and he just hears Eiji, and then the door would open, and it's Mr. Ganosuke in a wheelchair with his foot in a cast. And so Ganosuke tells him, hey, pretty much like, hey, we're both injured and everything. Let's race. Who wants to recover? Who's going to recover first? I'll race you and everything. Giving Hayabusa, this good spirit and everything. And Ezuki asked him, hey, what's going on with FMW? And Ganosuke's like, don't worry about it. Just, it's okay. Everything's good. Just concentrate on recovering and being back and everything. And and the wrestlers would meet with him and everything. But during his 3-month stay at this hospital at the Tokyo Nihon University, which that was that emergency hospital that he was taken to right after his injury, fighting for his life and everything, that whole 3-month stay cost $50,000. And so on February 14th, so this whole day, the day that ends up, the whole thing with Shoichi Arai, that it's now felt like Hayabusa can go to a hospital where he's not fighting for his life or anything like that. He can go to a recovery center instead, where just he can focus on recovering, and it'll be pretty much a live-in hospital to focus on him recovering. And so on February 14th, Ezuki arrives at the Moriyama Medical Center, and he meets his new nurse, who who is actually a big Hayabusa fan. And so he's, thrilled to be, working with Hayabusa, trying to help him recover and everything, because it's an actual fan of his. And, he lets him know, I'm going to do anything that's needed for you. I'm there for you. We're going to work on physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. We're going to get you to recover. So things are looking really good on February 14th, when, and Hayabusa has no idea what's going on with Shoichi Arai that day. Well, then he ends up that night getting a call, the next day, Ezuki gets a call that the check that was issued to his bank account by FMW to pay for the hospital stay had bounced. So Hayabusa would end up having his train, pretty much like his new nurse, who is Mr. Amaki. They would call the FMW office, but no one picks up. So then Hayabusa starts getting all anxious and everything all night, just wondering what's going on with FMW. Why did this check bounce? He can't sleep. And so he's just thinking about what's going on. And so, so on February 15th, Kodo Fuyuki arrives at Hayabusa's hospital to tell him FMW has declared bankruptcy. And Fuyuki lets him know, I'm going to start my own promotion, though, and I want you to be a part of it. And Hayabusa agrees, okay, it's just going to be a new FMW, just not called FMW. Fuyuki will run it and everything. I agree. I'll be a part of your promotion. But the problem is now Hayabusa, with FMW closing down, he now is no longer going to receive any workman's compensation. He's not going to receive this insurance money that he'd been receiving by being an employee of FMW. So FMW is pretty much not paying the hospital bills anymore going forward. And think about this. You're living in a hospital, being paralyzed. That's going to be an expensive stay and everything. So in the $50,000, I believe was covered by that staying at the hospital where he was fighting for his life. That was insured by FMW, but now FMW is no longer. So now all the hospital bills are pretty much up to Hayabusa to pay. And how are you going to pay, thousands and thousands of dollars of hospital bills? So a couple days later, Shoichi Arai ends up showing up at Hayabusa's office. and Shoichi Arai is just apologizing. I'm so sorry. You lost your home to return to. I promised that you would keep this going and everything, and I would keep FMW going for you, and now it's dead. And Arai would tell Ezuki that the loan sharks are looking for me and everything. It was actually pretty dangerous for Arai to show up. And Arai's account of this is just sad because Ezuki is just staring at him and looking just depressed and sad, and and all he can muster up to say is it's okay, Arai. It's all right, Arai. It's all right. Like, he forgives him and everything, because Arai is just heartbroken that because again, we go back to Arai felt responsible for Hayabusa being paralyzed to begin with by causing, having this hectic schedule and, putting him on a bus and not getting the proper rest or anything like that. And so, Arai, like I said, Arai feels super responsible. And then, now he can't pay for the hospital bills anymore. So, like I said, it's just a really sad and pressing occurrence, and Shoichi Arai just feels horrible. But so right now, Hayabusa is in a bad situation as far as being able to support himself while living at the hospital and everything. And so, like I said, right now, the last words he would say to Arai in person is just, please be careful. And Arai would leave feeling very, very guilty and just horrible.
Two questions about that. The first one, you've said a few times that he's in hiding. I don't know how the legal, how the financial laws are like there, but what can the loan sharks do to him at this point if he has no assets? I mean, can they cut his toes off or something?
I mean, yeah, they want to kill him. I mean, they're looking for money any way possible. I mean, we'll probably go over here in a little second. I don't want to spoil anything, but they still, they end up getting all their money, even though Arai just does about everything he can to give him the money. It's still not enough, but they still demand the money. They want their money. And yeah, I mean, it's, you're dealing with really shady people and stuff, and that are willing to do just about anything to get their money or to get paid, to get their money back. And they're, I'm sure that they're willing to, seriously injure him.
Okay. One more question. So Hayabusa's got, a wife, two daughters. I assume he has, that they're living somewhere. What is supporting them? Like, is his wife working full time? Is the family stepping in?
Yeah. So, and we'll probably go over it more next episode, but, or in a little bit, but I mean, yeah, their marriage ends up falling apart a lot because of this, but Hayabusa ends up trying to claim medical insurance or disability pretty much, and he ends up not getting it. And like I said, we'll probably go over that next episode. So like, they're financially, yeah, I mean, it really screwed them financially. I mean, it pretty much all their money was spent on this, and Hayabusa was very. He wouldn't say this, but I mean, just knowing his daughter, talking to his daughter, they're all very bitter about the wrestling business. They, she hates the wrestling business because of what it did to her dad and the financial stress that it caused them. I mean, there was a lot of issues as a result. And, but so another thing was, okay, when I met Hayabusa, he said like almost all my stuff when I came back to live back at my house, almost all my mask, everything, my jackets, my attire and everything, it was all gone. And I go, well, do you think your wife sold it because, the financial reasons? He goes, no, she wouldn't have done that. It's like, I don't know. I mean, how did it all disappear then? I didn't fight him over it or anything, but I would imagine, they were, doing whatever they can to keep afloat. And yeah, she had a job and everything. And I mean, Hayabusa had made some money. So, but I mean, they were in a really bad financial situation for a couple years as a result of this.
I mean, you're answering my questions by saying this, but it's like, you would think like, so it just doesn't sound like the wrestlers were as tight as you would think they were, where, you would think that they would pool together if Kanemaru is making $120,000 a year, that they could pool together and help out their friend who but maybe I'm assuming too much
Well,
there.
Kodo Fuyuki, I mean, it's like, I mean, how much money can you give? Because it's so much, like, and they've just lost their jobs and everything. So yeah, Kanemaru had 120,000, but he's been spending it at love hotels. So he's not even, the best financial situation anymore. Now he's, no longer has that $120,000 anymore. And, so now you're gonna pay someone else that, I mean, Kanemaru, I mean, and that's the thing. Like Hayabusa did have some friends, but Hayabusa and Kanemaru weren't that close or anything like that. So it just depends. I mean, again, it's just it's the wrestling business. It's not, I mean, there some of them, Ricky Fuji was very, very close to him and, good friends, and all of them would consider them, having just talked with the wrestlers and stuff, obviously there's the Mr. Ganasuke and there's the Ricky Fujis and everything, but a lot of them just were like, oh yeah, Hayabusa, hey, yeah, he's a good guy, I like him. So bad that injury happened, but they're not gonna put their livelihood, they got to support their families and everything at a time that they've just lost their job, so they're not in the situation to really help him out. Now Fuyuki does he does give some of the money from his Kawasaki Stadium show. He does pay some of Hayabusa's medical bills and everything like that from the show, but he's about to start receiving a bunch of medical bills also here coming up here in the next couple months. So he can't even really help out Hayabusa as much as I'm sure he wanted to. But Hayabusa did get a little bit of money from the Fuyuki, the WEW, the very first WEW Kawasaki Stadium show.
All right, cool. So, all right, we're gonna go on. So you've mentioned it before, but Fuyuki announces that he's going to be starting a new company. Who are the wrestlers that are going to go with him, and who are the sponsors, and what is the process of getting this off the ground?
So right now it's going to be his own money. Fuyuki's going to put up his own money. He has found sponsors that are willing to start up a new promotion called WEW, but that's gonna be held back till May. In the meantime, Fuyuki is just pretty much just and I'm sure there were small sponsors and everything like that, but this is pretty much out of Fuyuki's own wallet and everything. He's making sure that these FMW guys are getting paid. So he continues all the FMW shows that were booked in March and April to continue to run those under his name, his own finances. Like I said, I'm sure there were sponsors, but not much. They weren't sponsoring much or anything like that. But he's found a bigger sponsor to help to start up WEW. That's his long-term plan. WEW is going to be the new promotion. It's going to be the new FMW, just without Arai.
And is he bringing any other business stuff with him? Like, is he going to try to pick up the pay-per-view contracts, for instance?
No, Sky Perfect TV, that contract has been null and void, and they have no interest in the Fuyuki Army promotion. It was kind of like, wait, FMW was a low tier priority to us, and now it's not even FMW. Now it's just this other promotion with just some of the same guys. And no, thank you. We're not interested. And so now FMW, the Fuyuki promotions, as of right now, does not have TV.
Okay, so they announced they are going to be taking over the May 5th show. So, okay, before we go on to the first show that they do, one of the FMW guys on February 24th, Mammoth Sasaki, he does an appearance for Pride. What is the direction that he goes on now that FMW is closed?
So I mentioned how on the last show on February 4th, Mamasaki came out and he announced that he was going to work that tryout show for new Pride fighters. So he worked the best show on February 22nd at Corrigan Hall, and he battled Kim Jong-won, who was a former Pride fighter or former, I guess he was still a MMA fighter, but his prime was long gone. He was this veteran that wasn't very good, and Kim Jong-won just beats the crap out of him and beats him in like less than a minute, pretty much. Just destroys Mama Sasaki. Mama Sasaki announces, "All right, I'm retiring from any type of legitimate fighting. I'm retiring because obviously I'm not at the level of these guys if I can't beat this, veteran that's not very good anymore." So, pretty much Fuyuki failed his tryout, and Mama Sasaki is going to continue to be a wrestler because he's not cut out for MMA.
And for anyone listening, we're going to go over like where all of these different wrestlers wound up at the end of the episode. But okay, so we're going to go on. So the first show, it's going to be March 10th. It's going to be a Kuroken Hall show. Now this is not listed as a WEW show. It's a Fuyuki Army show. But if you want to go over that show for us.
Yeah, so like I may mention, these are just Fuyuki's. He's taken the financial the hit, or however well it does. This is on him, his finances and stuff. But and they announced 2,050 fans. This show was not taped. There's no footage of it or anything like that. But I did see that they were selling everything FMW's like merchandise wise. This show was trying to sell it off. They were trying to make as much money as they can off everything FMW that they possibly could to try and help out money with Arai or Hayabusa. At this point, there's just you may mention about the Hayabusa thing, and it's just like, well, Arai's in financials, struggles. Hayabusa's in financial struggles. All the wrestlers just lost their jobs pretty much, and now Fuyuki, he's having to pay for, he's trying to keep everyone employed, and so the big thing here is Kodo Fuyuki and Kentaro Kanemaru. They defeat Tetsuhiro Kuroda and Yoshihito Sasaki. It's a bloody match. Fuyuki beats the crap out of Sasaki. Kanemaru's all bloody and everything. And then at the end of the show, after Fuyuki pins Sasaki, Wild Thing ends up playing out, and Atsushi Onita comes to the ring, and he ends up, like I said, he was making mention of the whole Fuyuki, you're embezzling money. Nakamura, I know you're, stealing all the money and everything. So Onita challenges Kodo Fuyuki to a match on April 9th at the next Fuyuki Army show. And so looking like the big plan is going to be Onita versus Fuyuki at Kawasaki Stadium on May 5th. That seems like where they're gonna go and play off the real life hatred of Kodo Fuyuki and Atsushi Onita.
Quick question: did Onita ever come to the Diet Senate to his theme song?
No, I don't think so. And I've never been told that.
Okay, just checking. So, I know I asked this a lot, but, he's doing an angle where he's threatening to use his governmental power to prosecute these guys and stuff. Is he taking politics seriously, and does he intend on keeping his status in the Diet when doing this stuff?
Yeah, again, it's just he was elected as a wrestler, and he's just doing wrestling, and so no one's even really thinking anything of it. And it's not like, he ends up doing way worse stuff that ends up getting in trouble. But anything wrestling related, he was voted as a wrestler, and he wants to be a wrestler, and so it's not thought of as anything else other than this is a wrestler being a wrestler. On top of, as long as he's keeping up with his job, then he's good.
All right, cool. So let's see. Okay, so the next show is going to be on March 31st. They ran their show. Is there anything noteworthy from there?
No, this was just pretty much a house show. It was the Makeup FMW Day, or the Makeup FMW show that had happened. It was originally scheduled for January 21st. It's just a house show. All these shows pretty much other than the Korakuen Hall shows, they do start bringing in some DDT talent to fill in the undercard. So Poison, Sawada Julie, Senzahiro Takagi, they began working the mid-card matches. Some of the women's wrestlers, Tanny Mouse, Yoshiko Tamura, they're working. But again, it's just, it's just standard six-man FMW matches that are, I'm sure not doing that great by any means, but, they're pretty much just fulfilling all the bookings that FMW was not able to make through March and April.
All right, and okay, so then they had kind of a bigger show with a big announcement on April 9th. If you want to go over that for us.
Yeah, so I want to mention before that, though, that Kodo Fuyuki finally had a match against Mitsuharu Misawa on April 7th, 2 days before this show. And Fuyuki had been wanting a match with Misawa for years. 1998, he'd been challenging Misawa. And, Misawa and Fuyuki had worked a relationship with FMW and Noah in 2000. Well, Fuyuki wants to have a big match with Misawa, and so he gets a match on like I said, on April 7th, and it's an interesting match in the sense of you don't see very often Misawa get put through a table, but Kanemaru ends up setting Kanemaru, who accompanies Fuyuki, ends up setting a table up and diving off the top rope, putting Misawa through a table. But eventually, Misawa would end up getting the win over Fuyuki, and with an elbow, and Misawa gets the clean win, and it's okay match and everything. But afterwards, Kodo Fuyuki bows to the crowd, and that's the sign of something's up. So on April 9th, Fuyuki runs in the next Corrigan Hall show, and they have a main event of Atsushi Onita, Tsuhiro Kuroda, and Ricky Fuji. So it's like FMW guys, the Street Fight FMW Onita guys, taking on Kodo Fuyuki, Kentaro Kanemaru, and Shakuba Mukai, kind of like the Fuyuki Entertainment guys. And so it's a street fight, and this match, at least the clips were aired of this match, and like I said, it's a standard street fight, and they Nakamura, who Atsushi Onita had claimed it had embezzled money from FMW, ends up interfering. He ends up attacking Onita during the match, and there's table spots, and Onita hitting Shakuba Mukai with a broken piece of table, and eventually I think it's Fuyuki ends up going for a chair shot, but Onita moves out of the way, and Fuyuki ends up hitting Shakuba Mukai, and eventually Onita ends up hitting a Thunder Power Bomb on Shakuba Mukai and gets the win for the FMW Onita Kuroda Ricky Fuji team over the Fuyuki team. But again, there's a brawl afterwards, and Kanemaru and Fuyuki attack Onita. Again, it's looking like Onita versus Fuyuki at Kawasaki Stadium. That's the only thing that makes sense for WEW's first show. Well, afterwards, Fuyuki is backstage, and he announces that he has intestinal cancer, and he's going to have to go to, he is going to be retiring on April 14th. So in 5 days, he's going to be retiring. What happened was the cancer had been discovered on April 5th. So just about 4 days earlier, Fuyuki went to the hospital because he realized he had lost 25 pounds. So he went to the doctors to see what was going on. Why am I losing so much weight so fast? And so, like I said, they discovered that he had intestinal cancer. He's going to have to get an operation on April 18th, and he's not going to be able to wrestle anymore after they remove the cancer. And so Mitsuharu Misawa is backstage, and he, to make it, to seem like to show that it is a legitimate thing of why Fuyuki's retiring. Because if Fuyuki's just announcing retiring, you're just going to go, okay, how many times have you retired, Fuyuki? I don't believe you. But if Misawa's saying it, there has to be truth. Misawa's not going to just be a part of some angle or anything like that. So Misawa is there to show that it's legitimate, and announces, it's going to be at a Noah show on April 14th, and all the proceeds of the Noah show is going to go towards Fuyuki and the hospital bills. So the Fuyuki show is going to be pretty much a financial show. What's it called? A fundraiser. And anyway, so they end up. Onita ends up coming up to Fuyuki, and he puts his arm around him, and Fuyuki's crying, and Onita's, proclaiming that the feud is now over between Onita and Fuyuki. Even the match, obviously, of Onita versus Fuyuki is off, and it's a cool picture and a cool scene with Onita and Fuyuki, finally, because they really didn't like each other. Fuyuki didn't like Onita, and Onita obviously didn't like Fuyuki, and all those backstage politics, and a year ago, Fuyuki not wanting to deal with Onita, and and everything. And now they're finally gonna have the big match to have. They finally agreed to work together because FMW's gone, so we need a draw and everything. So they agreed to work together, and then just a couple weeks later, Fuyuki has cancer and he can't wrestle anymore.
There's a couple more shows here. So Fuyuki wrestled his retirement match on April 14th in Noah. If you want to go over that match for us.
So Noah would run at the Dipper Iraqi on April 14th, and Kodo Fuyuki would team up with Mitsuharu Misawa and Yoshinari Ogawa. They would take on Akira Taue, Masayo Inoue, and Yoshi Kikuchi. And Fuyuki comes out and is the last one announced, and Nakamura, his ring announcer, is the one calling his last introduction and everything. And so many yellow streamers get thrown into the ring and everything. It's insane how many people were through that the yellow streamers in the ring for Fuyuki. Fuyuki comes out with all his WEW guys: Kanamura, Shinjuku Shark, Chakoba Mukai, Kyoko Inoue. They all do a pose. I think they come out I think they even do the Team No Respect dance. And at the end, Kyoko Inoue and Fuyuki, they do this cute little pose together. But it ends up, it's nothing of a match or anything, but Fuyuki ends up getting the win over Kikuchi after about 16 minutes or so. It's just there pretty much to have Fuyuki just do his signature spots pretty much. That's all it's there for. And he couldn't work. He wasn't at the shape to work a normal match, straight match. So that's why it's such an odd pairing, considering he hadn't really worked very much Noah or anything like that. And then his big final match is against the Noah guys. But, so at the ceremony, Fuyuki has his wife and his two daughters with him, and, a bunch of the old wrestlers come out. Rusher Kimura comes out to give him flowers. Have the big retirement ceremony. Great Kojika comes out. Yuji Nagata comes out. Jado and Geto. I've drawn Kenta Kobashi comes out. So a bunch of the a bunch of wrestlers that either Fuyuki had a long-term pass with. A mighty Inoue from his IWE days comes out. Just trace back to all early days of Fuyuki through IWE, All Japan, Jado and Geto War. So anyway, so they have the retirement ceremony, and there's also a message from Hayabusa from the hospital wishing Fuyuki luck with everything. And Fuyuki ends up walking away with his daughters and wife, and he would retire. And we'll talk about it next episode. He actually ends up coming back and everything, even with all the surgery. But his cancer is real, and it's scary.
Okay, so one last show for April. On April 29th, Onita went to 0-1. They had a show in Fukuoka. What's Onita doing there?
He is coming out. So that now with Fuyuki not being able to wrestle the show, they have to have a drawing. They have to have a draw in of a show for Kawasaki Stadium. So Onita comes out to a 0-1 show with a letter, and he presents it to Shinya Hashimoto and Shinjiro Otani. He wants a match, Onita and the Great Sasuke versus Hashimoto and Otani. He wants an exploding barbed wire match. And so he presents the letter to Hashimoto. Hashimoto just laughs at it, and Otani Hashimoto hands it to Otani, and Otani just rips it up. And they end up brawling all over the ring. The Onita guys and the 0-1 guys brawl. And so Hashimoto and Otani are not willing to have a death match with Onita for Kawasaki Stadium. And so it's going to be just a straight match with Onita and Sasuke versus Otani and Hashimoto.
I always just ask, but when they do these angles, are they planned out, or are they just kind of shooting with it?
No, it's planned out. Yeah, they have all the guys out, and it's just, okay, we're all going to have this big brawl to set up the big show.
All right, cool. So, okay, and before we go on to May, I just want to ask one more thing. We haven't talked about him since closing. It's been 2 months now since FMW closed, 2.5. How is Arai doing, and is he in contact with anybody?
Well, I may mention that he is he did appear at Hayabusa's hospital to apologize and everything like that, but that's the last anyone had seen of him publicly. He is completely hiding. He is living with one of the FMW sponsors in complete hiding. No one knows where he is. There's no contact or anything like that. He is writing the autobiography to be able to try and help out financially. Help all that money's going to go to the loan sharks and everything that he's indebted to. So right now at this time he's just in hiding working on his book.
All right, and the idea for the book is that this is going to help repay his debts and everything. I'm just curious, are they going after his family for this money?
No, not yet. They will. We'll go over here in a little while, but they do reach out to his family after he is not able to pay them back and everything. But right now they're just looking for him.
Okay. So on May 4th, we have on May 4th, Onita ran a show at Kurokan Hall, and on May 5th, the WEW kind of debuted at the Kawasaki Stadium. If you want to go over these two shows for us.
Yeah, so Onita announced a crowd of 2,254 fans. I don't know if that can the building can actually hold that many fans, but that's what he announced. And so the big thing for here is, so FMW was not bought by anybody. So Onita can't, he's announcing, I'm going to bring back FMW. Well, he doesn't actually own the FMW name, so he actually cannot use it as a promoted name. So he just adds his name to the front of it. So this promotion is just called Onita FMW. So it's a completely different company. It is not the FMW. He doesn't even bring back, the promotion that he had is because it was two separate companies. There was FMW that he owned, and then because he had changed the name from Frontier Martial Arts to FMW Incorporated when he owned it, and then Shoichi Arai bought everything around it and renamed it Frontier Martial Arts. So Onita has a brand new complete promotion. He is just using his name. The only thing that he owns that he brings back really is the original FMW logo, where it's FMW and there's a man fighting in front of the F. That was the very first FMW logo. So that logo is back, and it's on the cover of the ring. That's the big introduction to start the show. The original FMW is back, and the show, it is filled. It is a complete nostalgia show. It does really well. They have Shark Toshiya and Kaori Nakayama team up against Noki A and Gami, with Megumi Kudo as the special referee. Gami would end up pinning Kaori Nakayama. Chakobamukai takes on, so it's kind of the old FMW versus the new FMW. Chakobamukai takes on Katsushi Ueda, who was the old FMW kickboxer, with Chakabal getting the win after Ueda would be disqualified. Goemon would end up pulling out of the show. It was originally supposed to be Goemon and Onryo. They would end up Goemon would pull out, so it would end up being Onryo and Sun Paul. They would team up against the Shooters. The Shooters being an old FMW gimmick in early 1990, were two guys with black mask, that would look identical. They would do like twin spot where they move around and you can't tell the difference who is who and who's the legal man. Well, there's a comedy spot where Onryo and Sunpaul, who can't look any different than one's a ghost and one's an American guy, they do the same spot to try and show, do the twin spot and everything. But Onryo would end up getting the win over Shooter 2. Matsunobu Kirisu, who was one of the old FMW 1990 top heels, he would go up against Shoji Nakamaki in a barbed wire death match. Nakamaki's pretty much done at this point. Nakamaki is working for Onita's office, actually, as senator and everything. Nakamaki is working for him. But he's pretty much done. He can only 5 minutes before Kirisu wins. Mr. Pogo, he ends up defeating Ricky Fuji in a scramble bunkhouse death match. It's just the Pogo type match with Pogo using the sickle and everything, and ends up throwing Ricky over top rope with the chain hanging him and everything. Hito would take on Mitsuhiro Matsunaga. This is an interesting match. It's a scorpion barbed wire board thumbtack death match, and there's a spot here where Hito ends up taking one of the scorpions and putting it in a baseball cap, and puts the hat on Matsunaga's head with the scorpion in it, and then hits Matsunaga over the head with the chair. And then eventually Matsunaga would end up getting a torture rack on Hito while standing barefoot on the thumbtacks. And so Matsunaga has Hito in the torture rack, and Matsunaga, just the pain was too much for him to be standing on the thumbtacks. He ends up collapsing and just tells the referee, "I give up. I can't do this." So even though he was doing the offensive move, he ended up having to give up. He went too far and above, and Hito ends up getting the win over Matsunaga. And then Atsushi Onita and Masato Tanaka, they take on Kentaro Kinemura and Tetsuhiro Kuroda. So it's like the old FMW, or the FMW versus the WEW guys. And this is the first time Kinemura and Kuroda are taken on against Tanaka for the first time in over a year since Tanaka left. And I mean, it's a good match. It's a standard street fight type match. Kinemura sends Tanaka through a table, and there's chairs, the dueling chair spots, and there's a spot where like Kinemura has Tanaka in a figure four leg lock but with his on Tanaka's neck, like he's choking Tanaka out with his neck. Well, Onita starts doing the same move to Kuroda, and they're both doing that to, they're both staring at each other and yelling at each other while choking the other guys out with their legs. But eventually, Tanaka would end up getting the win over Kinemura. So I believe a rolling elbow, and then so Tanaka and Onita get the win. Kinemura and Kuroda, I believe brawl. They're pissed off and everything. They attack Onita afterwards. They run away or not run away, but leave as the heels and everything. And Onita does his big, Onita theater to end the show with all the crowd going crazy and throwing the water bottles. And, it's a complete nostalgia act. And, for this show, it works, especially at Corrigan Hall. And for it's the original FMW is back. But problem is, it's all, besides the main event guys who, I would still, Onita's in his 40s. The other guys at the FMW, Tanaka, Kinemura, Kuroda, are early 30s, but pretty much everyone else is, old and, in their 40s and everything. And so there's no way to really build a promotion on this, but it does really well as the first nostalgia act of FMW.
And then if you want to go on to the, before we talk about the WEW debut, I'm just curious, why did they, they ran as Fuyuki Army through March and April. Why did they wait to debut the WEW branding for the May 5th show?
Because he had found a different sponsor that wasn't willing to do the other shows. So this isn't, Fuyuki's not putting up his money. He's just the booker and the promoter and all that. But he has a sponsor that's willing to put in the money for these shows. And so it's, and this is what he wanted. He wanted WEW to start fresh at have a big show and everything like that. He wanted it to seem like a legitimate, as big as FMW was type thing, and not just some small indie touring and doing poorly, which it might have done if you had done it right away. Having at house shows that FMW, was going to hold that FMW couldn't do. So WEW, gets this big, awesome 16,000 fans at a Kawasaki Stadium, opening show to make it look like a really big deal.
All right, so if you want to go over this, the May 5th show.
Yeah, so I wanted to make mention before this show, though, back, with Fuyuki announcing that he had cancer and everything. So he had a 7-hour operation on April 18th. To remove the cancer. And so, at this time, it's cancer, but hey, it's thought of like, okay, everything's going to be okay. It's, he'll get it removed and everything, Fuyuki will be okay. And well, the problem was it ends up, and Kinemura comes with him, and his wife, Keiru, come with him. And, they're sitting there waiting patiently. And and after a couple hours, like, wait, this is taking way longer than it was supposed to. This is supposed to be a couple hours, and it took 7 hours to have the surgery. But due to Fuyuki's abnormally large intestines, it would be a lot more difficult than it was expected. And so they would remove, they removed the cancer after 7 hours, and but Fuyuki would have to stay at the hospital. And so the first time that he's allowed to leave the hospital was for May 5th. So he comes straight from the hospital to the show. And, he comes in, I believe, like in a really nice car and everything. And they do a retirement ceremony for him during the show where he gets to be with the WEW guys, the Tetsuhiro Kuroda, Kentaro Kanemaru, Nosawa, Chakobama, Shinjuku Shark. And I wanted to make mention also, a bunch of the FMW guys also prior to this had pulled out of the show. So Mema Sasaki, Goemon, a bunch of the other a bunch of the FMW guys have pulled out of this show, and so Fuyuki's having to kind of fill it in with DDT guys and with more like bigger Noah guys. So anyway, so this show on May 5th drew and announced 16,800 fans. So the combination of Fuyuki retirement, which was a big deal, and then bringing in the Noah guys, and then having this big match of Shinya Hashimoto and Otani against Onita and Sasuke, it did draw. It drew very, very well. So, I mean, it did a lot better than the FMW show did a year prior, and they used, an exploding ring match. But the undercard matches, just kind of go over them real quick. Poison Sawada Julie and Jun Kasai, they take on Biomonster DNA and Onryo. Biomonster ends up tapping out to Poison Sawada Julie's cattle mutilation. So Biomonster DNA's gimmick is pretty much just killed off here. They made it as a really big deal monster gimmick with FMW, but Fuyuki didn't really continue to book him strong with in WEW. Shinjuku Shark takes on Kazuma Nahai. I may mention last episode how Rika Fujisaki was Shinjuku Shark's girlfriend in FMW, and he was, she got kidnapped, and he had to defeat like 10 assassins that were like Yakuza guys, and so his big, he had to defeat 10 of them. He continued in DDT, fighting these guys in DDT and the Fuyuki Army promotion. Well, this is the 10th and final guy he has to defeat, and Kazuma Nahai is like, he looks like a Yakuza guy. He if you know what he looks like, he is pretty much the stereotypical image of him. And this is the final match for Shark to win. He ends up losing to Nahai, but regardless, ends up getting Rika Fujisaki back, and they hug, and that is the end of that angle with Fujisaki with the whole FMW kidnapping gimmick. Senzahiro Takagi and Takashi Sasaki, who would end up becoming the Freedom's owner and a Big Japan Deathmatch guy. A lot skinnier here. He had nowhere near the muscles back then. They would defeat Chakobaba Mukai and Nosawa when Takagi would pin Nosawa. They would bring in Minami Toyota. She would work a match against Komiko Mayakawa, and they would also have another women's match. They just try to kind of fill out the undercards and everything. The big matches here are Mitsuharu Misawa and Yoshinari Ogawa taking on Damon Honda and Masao Inoue. So the big draw here is Misawa working the show. And, it's a standard match. It's nothing great or anything like that. Misawa's the only really good worker out of this match, but it's kind of interesting seeing Misawa work Kawasaki Stadium. Akira Taue would take on Tetsuhiro Kuroda. Noah was not going to lose to the WEW FMW guys. At least Taue would get at least Kuroda would get some offense. He'd get his lariat and some near falls and everything before Taue would end up getting the win over Kuroda. Same could not be said for Kentaro Kanemaru as he took on Vader. Vader just completely destroys Kanemaru here. Kanemaru gets little to no offense. I think he gets like a shoulder tackle, and that's it. Everything else is just Vader destroying Kanemaru, just laying him out, and finishing Kanemaru off with a Vader bomb for the win in less than 7 minutes. I mean, it pretty much was, okay, we'll let Vader work, but Kanemaru's not going to get any offense in against the Vader. And then the main event of the show is Atsushi Onita and the Great Sasuke taking on Shinya Hashimoto and Shinjiro Otani. And like I said, this is not a death match. It's the only time pretty much that they ever well, I guess they ran in 2004, but a death match this was not a death match at Kawasaki Stadium, which was the first time that there was no death match for Kawasaki Stadium. So anyway, Onita is gonna square off against Hashimoto to start the match and everything, and they're about to look like they're about to do a test of strength. They put their hands out and everything, and right away Onita spits mist in Hashimoto's face. And that causes this big brawl and everything, and Onita is DQ'd just less than a minute into the match and everything, and the crowd's pissed off that this is what a DQ 1 minute in. This isn't even a match, and so they agreed to restart the match and everything, and so they're gonna redo the match, and Hashimoto just gonna wrestle with mist in his all over his face. Hashimoto begins to beat the crap out of Onita during this match with kicks. There's a spot where Onita is trying to spit mist again at him again, and Hashimoto kicks him so hard the mist comes flying out of Onita's mouth. And Sasuke, Sasuke tries to do some high flying moves. He does somersault plancha and everything, but by no means is this a good match. It's a shame. This is and they had obviously Onita's not gonna be great, but three of the guys are really good workers, and Onita can still, he can have an Onita match, and this isn't even an Onita match for being Onita's last ever time at Kawasaki Stadium, and it's just disappointing all the way around, I would say. And eventually Shinjiro Otani looks like he's about to kick Onita, do his run kick to the face and everything, and they're in the corner, and Onita ends up throwing a fireball at Otani, and the referee again calls for the bell and DQs Onita, and this time it's official. Onita has been DQ'd, and all the 0-1 guys and all the Onita guys hit the ring, and they're brawling and everything to end the show. And just politics. They just the Onita wasn't going to job. The 0-1 guys weren't going to job. I'm sure Sasuke wasn't really keen on jobbing. I'm sure he would have, but I think they felt that this was, more important to have Onita just be DQ'd instead of, just Sasuke losing to Otani or Hashimoto or anything like that. So, anyway, so that's pretty much the end of the show. A big time disappointment as far as just the matches weren't that good, and the main event having a screw job finish, a DQ, kind of put a sour taste in the fans' mouth, especially for this to be the big WEW opening show, and just to have Kawasaki Stadium show end in a DQ. It's kind of like having a WrestleMania match end in DQ.
So the only question that I have about the show is basically, was there any pushback to all of the FMW talent losing the main matches?
Not really. Again, it was just kind of one of those, you're going to work with Noah. This is what's going to happen. You're going to get destroyed, and you're going to hope that the show draws and makes money. And I think at this point, Fuyuki is all about hey, we're trying to pay Hayabusa, his hospital bills. Hey, we're trying to pay these wrestlers. I need money for my hospital bills. And so it's just one of those, you're just going to have to take, Kentaro Kanemaru getting squashed by Vader, or Kuroda losing to Atawe, things like that. Those something they're both willing to do for the betterment of getting the Noah talent. And so, like I said, the show was the financial success, which I'm sure at this point, that's all any of the guys cared about.
And final question about it: so with them launching WEW and them being drawing from talent from Noah and kind of bigger companies, who is the intended fan base here, and what is their reaction? Because if they're coming in as FMW mainstays and they see all of these talent just getting squashed, what type of fan base are they going for?
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's the FMW fans that are still it's the FMW fans, but now you're adding in the Onita fans because the FMW fans alone aren't going to sell this show out or help make this show a success because again, a year ago you had it as an FMW show and it drew 10,000 fans and you had to have an exploding ring match and you had to have Hayabusa's return. So this show you have Onita, you're just what you're doing is just hoping all these fan bases come together. So you have the FMW fan base, you have the Onita fan base. You're hoping the 0-1 fan base comes in. You're hoping the Noah fan base comes in. You're hoping that Manami Toyota and the All Japan Women old time women's fan base comes in. You're hoping the DDT fan base comes in. You got Jun Kasai on the show. You're hoping some Big Japan fans might show up. So it's all these different promotions. It's just one of these kind of like how the Tokyo Dome back in 1995 was such a huge success because you had all the different promotions. So you had all the fan bases come in. So that was what the big thing here was. Let's just get everybody, have this be like an independent summit or just a Japanese wrestling summit with 0-1 Noah and all that. All these guys come in so we can have a big show. And then, at this point, it doesn't matter the FMW guys' job. Yeah, they're not at the level of Taue or Vader or anything like that. Who cares? If they're helping draw the show, that's all that matters because we need money.
And one final note. So, as you said, Kasai worked this show, and then later that evening he worked for Big Japan, and this is where he suffered his leg injury, I believe. Starting next year in January, Kasai debuts for 0-1, but Kasai, for this moment, he's done with the Big Japan office. There's always a lot of talk about why he left. What led to Kasai leaving the company?
Yeah, he suffered a leg injury, I believe, and Big Japan wouldn't pay for the hospital bills, and so he was always very against Big Japan. So he left Big Japan just super pissed off at them that they weren't paying his hospital bills and very negative about the promotion. And so he goes to 0-1 and he's just kind of this junior heavyweight and not pushed very well. Nothing, he knows he's being wasted at 0-1 and he's not going to even be at the level to even have a match against like a Hashimoto or Otani. He's just going to be undercard guy. So after a while, I'm leaving 0-1. He only makes it about a year or so. And then he would end up getting attached with Kanamura's group. And Kanamura's group, and we'll go over in a future episode, they're working with Big Japan. So Jun Kasai is willing to work with Big Japan because he likes the fans and he likes the money, but he is not a fan of the front office and never he's still to this day, I'm sure, not the biggest fan of Eiji Tosaka or Great Kajika or the people that were not willing to pay for his medical bills when he had put his body on the line for them for 3 years or 3 to 4 years earlier.
Yeah, especially when they're booking him to be thrown off of trucks and in fire death matches and all of the, it's very extreme. And to think if he fell off a truck at a show and broke his back, would they be there for him? It's bad business.
No, Big Japan has always had that kind of bad reputation as far as just not paying the injured wrestlers and everything.
All right, so that's going to take us to May 16th. I'll let you walk us through what happened on May 16th.
So I'm going to actually go back to May 14th, just 2 days prior to that, where the sponsor or one of the FMW sponsors that was helping Shoichi Arai called Hayabusa and was like, "Hey, Arai is staying with me. I'm helping him hide from the loan sharks. I think Arai is going to kill himself." And Arai had actually, if you read his book, you could tell it had been on his mind for a while. At least when he wrote the book in April, he was planning on killing himself. He wrote a part about how, pretty much saying his time on Earth was going to come to an end. He doesn't want to. He's hoping something can happen, and he does the metaphor of he hopes that he could kick out at 2.99 right before the 3 count. The being the 3 count being the his life. But I mean, he's pretty much knowing at this point that he is going to end his life. And he's making all the arrangements and everything, and the person, the FMW sponsor that's helping him hide, picks up on that, calls Hayabusa, and is like, "Hey, Arai is planning on killing himself. Can you talk to him? This is dire." And so Hayabusa calls Arai on May 14th, and Hayabusa, it speaks to Arai, and Hayabusa's pretty much like, "I'm worried about you. I'm hearing that you're thinking about killing yourself." And Arai admits to it. He goes, "Yeah, I am thinking about killing myself to help. It's going to help out my family money wise." Because going back to that life insurance policy that he put out on himself back in 1998, right before his meeting with Atsushi Onita, out of fear that Atsushi Onita was going to kill him, he wanted to have financial security for his family. He put out $1.5 million for his for his life insurance policy out of the fear of Onita killing himself. So he still has that policy. And so now he's thinking, I owe so much money. The loan sharks are after me. It just will help out everybody, to try and pay off the loan sharks if I just die, and the policy the money can pay off all the loan sharks. And so Hayabusa is talking to him, and it's like, "No, don't do that. You want to live. You don't want to kill yourself. Whatever happens, it can be figured out but you need to stay alive." Hayabusa is very pro-life. He had suicidal thoughts after his injury. He wanted to die, Hayabusa. But, after his surgery, his heart, there was this new lease on life for him, and he wanted to live. And, he even had said in interviews, that the injury was a great thing for him because it put him in a different perspective that he never would have thought of as far as life goes. And, it made him appreciate life more. So, he's very like, "No, don't do it, Arai." And Arai goes, "Okay, I agree. I'm not going to kill myself." So Arai is pretty much just, siding with Hayabusa, like, "Okay, I'm not going to kill myself. Everything's going to be okay. I agree with what you're saying." And he hangs up, and Hayabusa has a bad feeling after he hung up the phone. Like, I don't know if I believe him. Just the way he was saying it. I mean, Hayabusa was pretty much just taking it as, he's just telling me what I want to hear. And so then on May 16th, 2 days later, at the Mitsumoto Park in Katsushika, which is in Tokyo, and there's tons of trees in this area. It's a big, giant park. At 6:20 a.m. on May 16th, Shoichi Arai's body was found by a jogger. So it probably had just been an hour or two early. Arai probably woke up early that morning. He went in his traditional business suit that he would always wear to the ring in FMW. He would go to this park, and he would take his tie, and he would hang himself with one of the branches on one of the trees. And so a jogger found his body and, called 911 pretty much right away. And yep, it was announced that Shoichi Arai had killed himself. And a day or so afterwards, all the FMW wrestlers got letters from Shoichi Arai. He wrote apologizing to them about the financial situation. So this was, like I said, about a day or two later. So they all knew that Arai had passed away, but probably the day before, probably on May 15th, he probably sent these out to everybody as far as the FMW staff. So like Mr. Ganosuke got one, Kanamura got one, even Sugio J. Taro, who was the FMW commentator and part of the booking staff. He wasn't even working in FMW at the very end. He got a letter, and so everyone got a letter, just Arai apologizing, hoping that the money that he wanted this money to go to the FMW wrestlers as well, because he owed them money. But I don't believe it ever actually got him, but he was thinking this is going to be so much money that help pay off some of the debts I owe for the wrestlers that didn't get paid. So, this was just his way of thinking, this is my, helping everybody out. But like I said, I don't know if that necessarily was enough to pay everybody. But so anyway, so everybody got a letter, but Hayabusa, he got 10 cassette tapes from Shoichi Arai. And so Hayabusa listens to all these tapes, and so it's just Arai apologizing, just so sorry for everything that he did, because he felt and in the cassette he's saying, I'm taking my own life. I felt like I've disappointed everybody. He felt like he felt like he was responsible for Hayabusa, who was one of the few wrestlers that were really good friends. He was really good. They were really good friends from the beginning, going back to 1991 when Hayabusa had just had his second match against the Gladiator, and Mike Awesome is beating the crap out of him, and Hayabusa is vomiting black blood, and Shoichi Arai was the guy to come over and be like, "Are you okay?" So there was always that friendship. A lot of the FMW wrestlers weren't necessarily friends with Shoichi Arai, but Hayabusa was. So Hayabusa took this very personal, it was very sad to, that was his friend of 10 plus years, passing away. Kodo Fuyuki hears the news and has a panic attack, and because of his illness, he ends up having to go to, with the cancer and everything, he has to be treated right away at the hospital. He had gotten to leave the hospital for a little while. Well, he has a panic attack, and he pretty much has to go back into the hospital due to just hearing that news of Shoichi Arai's passing. And I wanted to tell this story also. So Shoichi Arai, they ended up getting $1.5 million from his life insurance policy. Well, he owed more money than that with the loan sharks. So all that money did not pay off the loan sharks. So they still were wanting the money from the Arai family. His ex-wife was still responsible for paying it. And it ended up eventually, they would have to pay certain amounts. The loan sharks would just take they weren't going to go away just because Shoichi Arai, had passed away. They went on to his ex-wife. And so she was paying up until a certain point for a couple years, until her father ended up just paying the rest off. So after a couple years, finally Shoichi Arai, no longer, having passed away, he no longer owed any money, in his passing. But it took years, and it took his ex-wife's father to pay it off. So Shoichi Arai, I talked about it a while ago, Shoichi Arai's daughter. She was very young at the time. She's about 6 years old or so at this time, and Arai and his wife had split up in October when she pretty much kicked him out, and they divorced. And so Shoichi Arai, and I talked about it a little bit, how Shoichi Arai's ex-wife was kind of crazy, but this is how she felt what was best for her daughter. She did not tell her daughter that her father passed away. She went her whole life just thinking that her dad had just left and just moved away, and Shoichi Arai's ex-wife would end up marrying another man a year or two afterwards. So Shoichi Arai's daughter, Rika, 7 or 8, and here's a new man, and she just called him new dad. There was old dad and new dad, and so she just lived life with new dad, not knowing really what happened to her old dad until she got on the internet when she was like 15, 16, 17. I mean, not even that long ago, just like probably 2013, 2014, just 4 or 5 years ago, and got on the internet to search about her old dad, having kind of realized he was a wrestler, he had to do with wrestling. And she Googled him and found out that he passed away. So she didn't even know that her own father had passed away up until like 10 plus years afterwards, because her mom she hated him so much. She just wanted him to be disappeared from her daughter's life at all. No memory, anything. So Also, so and her name's Rika. She ended up she couldn't handle her mom. There was a lot of issues in her family and everything with her mom. And like I said, she feels her mom is crazy. She ended up going to Australia for a couple years just to get away from her mother for school, and so she knows English really well, having stayed in Australia for a while. And I reached out to her after getting Shoichi Arai's book translated, and we talked one time. And that's we talked one time a couple years ago, and and like I said, she was telling me about her mom, and she told me about getting on the internet to find out about her father passing and everything. And she's a singer now. She's actually semi, she has like legitimate YouTube music videos and stuff. So she has, she like that's her career and everything. I mean, she's not a big deal or anything like that, but she's she's big enough to have a legitimate music video. So anyway, and so anyway, I talked to her that one time, and nothing happens, and a year plus goes by or so, and I went to Japan in 2016, and one of my things I really wanted to do was go to Shoichi Arai's grave. And it is in the middle of nowhere in Saitama. It's really like it was probably the most difficult thing I've ever had to do when it comes to Japan, just having to find the right bus that connected, because it was just out in the middle of nowhere. So I get there, and it's just this, you just walk around, and there's just this giant graveyard. And I get there, and I mean, I've gone this far. It's an hour plus train ride, and like I said, it's getting on all these buses, connect to this, connect to that, finally, and then finding this graveyard in the middle of nowhere, and it is huge. And I'm like, oh man, I've gone this far. I gotta find it. And so I'm going through all these different Japanese graves and everything, and then I finally, after about 20-30 minutes or so, finally find Shoichi Arai's grave, and it has the old FMW logo, the Entertainment Pro Wrestling logo, as his headstone on his grave. And so that was a really important thing for me to do. But the crazy thing about this is, and like I said, I've gone almost around a year or so without talking to her. Shoichi Arai's daughter messages me on Facebook, and I looked at it. I looked at it. It was at the exact moment I was in that graveyard looking for her daughter, or for her father's grave, that she messaged me just out of the blue, just reaching out to talk to me. That was just one of the craziest things for me, just being like, I talked to this girl in around a year, and I just so happened, and she doesn't know I'm, at that very moment, looking for her looking for her father's grave in a graveyard in Saitama. So that was always kind of ominous to me about that. Just what are the odds type thing. And I mean, because like I said, I don't talk to her regularly by any means. So that was, so all this is going on as far as the Shoichi Arai thing. And I mean, it pretty much, that really was the end of FMW as we know it, because I mean, if Shoichi Arai had stayed, had lived, I'm sure all the other promoters, they would book, Mickey Baragi will, he would bring Wing back so many times. Sana would bring back, keep IWA Japan alive. They'd never be able to use the actual FMW name. No one has ever used the FMW name as a promotion. But I'm sure Shoichi Arai would have promoted more, FMW shows under his name, something like that. But with his passing, I consider that really, truly the end of FMW, and everything else is kind of a sequel.
All right. So I have a bunch of questions about this. So the first one is, what is the immediate reaction in the public from guys like, Onita, Fuyuki, etc.?
No, just sadness. I mean, but you have to realize also, like, Shoichi Arai had just written a book where he just trashes Onita. I mean, we've talked about it, how a lot of the stuff we talked about on this podcast and everything is based off Shoichi Arai going, Onita's doing this, Onita costs this much, he's forced his way back. And Shoichi Arai was very, he did not think highly of Onita at the end, even though they were friends. And so Onita, obviously he had a ceremony, a 10 bell salute on the next Onita FMW show on June 2nd for Arai. But he kind of had just kept quiet about Arai. For years up until last year, he did an interview right before his retirement back in October 2017, and he wrote, Shoichi Arai said a lot of things about me. I don't believe that, they're not true, but I mean, again, it's word for word. I would, I would take Arai's word about Onita, although I'm sure there was exaggeration involved. But pretty much Onita was like, it's not true. I loved Arai, and I just want everyone to know that I loved Shoichi Arai. And so, I mean, they were friends even after Onita retired in '95. He still went to Arai to talk to him, and he would still call him every night just to complain about his life and just vent and everything. And Arai would always pick up and answer. And so, I would consider if just kind of being just hearing both sides and everything. I would imagine that it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of like a marriage of just kind of a emotionally abusive, husband type thing, which I would consider Onita in this case, where he kind of took advantage of Arai, who was just so, that's Onita. I got to deal with it. Yeah, I might not like this, but it's Onita. And so like I said, I feel like, but now that Arai has passed away for 15 years plus, and Onita's not going to see that as, oh, I was being emotionally abusive, or, oh, I was being the jerk at the end. It was him just saying, hey, that was my friend. I was venting to him, and I have a better wrestling mind than him, so I just took, I just kind of nudged my way into making sure that my decisions were final because I'm Onita and I have a better wrestling mind than Shoichi Arai, which is true. But again, it wasn't Onita's place really. It was Arai's place to make these decisions. But Arai was very, timid and, had a passive aggressive attitude, whereas Onita very just, we're doing it my way. And then Kodo Fuyuki, he actually, and they were, again, they were friends, but Kodo Fuyuki blamed Shoichi Arai for FMW closing. So again, that's more of the Fuyuki considers Arai his friend, and I mean enough to where he's so upset he has to go to the hospital having a panic attack. But he wrote a book. Kodo Fuyuki wrote a book right before he passed away, and he pretty much blamed Shoichi Arai for FMW passing, saying it wasn't handled. This promotion was not handled correctly. The money situation, Fuyuki was in charge of the money, but Arai was the one, had final say and everything. And Fuyuki just felt like it was an amateur running a wrestling promotion, and he wasn't up for it, and that's what killed FMW, especially at the end. Again, kind of ignoring the fact that most people blame Fuyuki for his booking decisions and just going the American entertainment route. I mean, the last couple of years we've talked about just the gimmicks and everything. A lot of that was Fuyuki. So Fuyuki's going to see it as this was Arai, this wasn't me, where it was probably, it was a blame of everybody. Even going back to Onita. FMW closing down, can trace back to Onita not really giving a crap if it closed down and I'm going to retire and it's going to close down. Onita never really set it up for the future. He just was, this is now, make money for me, let me have my big shows. Okay, now I'm gone. You guys can handle it afterwards and everything. And, so there's always that problem with FMW trying to build itself back up, being a promotion that had been based around Sushi Onita, and now they got to completely change. And by the luck of Hayabusa being actually a main, a actual star, they lucked out for a couple years until all these different situations happened, including going the entertainment route and going with Kodo Fuyuki and his style of booking, and Shoichi Arai making bad financial decisions and having bad, I think Fuyuki's correct, kind of having an amateur run a professional business that he wasn't really quite kept up for when the Japanese bubble is about to burst and all the promotions are about to go down, at least financially.
So, I don't think that you have an answer for this, but it's just when I hear this story and everyone, he had like no business skills. He was thrown into running the company, and he just didn't know how to manage it, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And I'm just thinking, all I ever think of is I'm just like, why, like, I don't know, why did it get this bad? Why didn't anybody ever, nobody ever noticed that he was terrible at running a business and tried to do something about it? Like the investors, the Tokyo Pop, for instance, like it's just kind of weird to me that for since 1995 nobody tried to step in and help this guy out.
Well, it was his company, and you got to get look at it as, hey, FMW was still a financially successful company up until about 1998. But again, there were signs as of 97, where Shoichi Arai is not paying he's the taxes that he's taking out of the wrestlers' paychecks. He's not paying the government for, and so there's that sign right there. But you don't find that out until a year later. It's very like, well, let's I mean, FMW itself, I've always considered this. FMW was not the promotion was not a promotion for tomorrow. It was a promotion for today, and then tomorrow eventually happened. Again, the Onita style, and let's build up a bigger death match and a bigger death match and everything until you can't go any bigger. And then all of a sudden now Onita's gone, and now you have to start all over. And again, you lucked out with Hayabusa, but Hayabusa never could be and never was as big as Onita or Onita's FMW. The Arai FMW was never that big, but it still was a financial successful company in a lot of ways. But again, they took shortcuts, and at the first sign of business is starting to go downhill, because again the bubble crashed. There was that crash in Japan where just all the promotions started getting hits, and so. I mean, as far as, just someone stepping in, again, it's his company, and it's, if you want to help sponsor me, you can. If you don't, then move on to a different company, because at this point in, 2002, again, there's so many different companies, so many different styles. There's Lucha Wrestling, Toriumon type promotions. There's All Japan, Noah, 01, all these different promotions being able to be something different. And, FMW, again, you can't kick this person out when it's his decision. This is his final decision. He's the one, and again, they're getting DirecTV / Sky Perfect TV money to, run this type of style, and that's how they're on these big networks, because of the entertainment style that Shoichi Arai felt was necessary. Going back to 1997, we were doing death matches, and the decline started happening under the death match route. So now let's try this different route to see if it can miraculously change everything. Well, it didn't. It made the decline go faster. But I mean, everything was just 2000, 2001, 2002 were just bad years for Japanese wrestling in general, and just FMW just never was able to cater to, again, the future or tomorrow. I mean, I've made mention how FMW never had more than like $50,000. The promotion itself never was a net positive of more than like $50,000. It always was run by, okay, just we're not worrying about tomorrow. We're just making sure everybody gets paid today, and everyone gets their paychecks until, now business is so bad, Hayabusa's injured, we can't make those payments.
Okay. So a really, I think it's a really sad story. Sad ending to a sad story.
Yeah, no, it's a tragedy. I mean, how many people ended up passing away specifically? Shoichi Arai, and then, you have Hayabusa, his injury resulted in him passing away. I don't think Kodo Fuyuki passed away due to this, but I mean, he died, just a little bit over a year after FMW. So those are three big factors in this promotion, and they've all passed away due to serious, illness, or, taking their own life, or serious injury. And so it is one of the saddest stories in Japanese wrestling, I would think.
Yeah. Oh, I just have so many other questions about it, but it's all the same answer. Like, my questions are with his family, because I think of when Sabu has, when he's injured, they'll do benefit shows for him. And meanwhile, this guy's family is shouldering a debt of like $1 million. It's just crazy to me. It's really sad story. But okay, so going on, so the next WEW show that's going to be kind of the bigger one, on May 27th, WEW, they ran Kuroken Hall. If you want to go over that for us.
Yeah, so they're pretty much at this point. A lot of the FMW wrestlers have kind of a lot of them have pulled out of WEW, and we'll probably go over that in a little while or next episode or so. But a lot of the core FMW wrestlers, Sasaki, Goemon, the younger FMW wrestlers, they are no longer on the show. So Kodo Fuyuki, to make this like a legitimate promotion, he reaches out to Kai and Tai Dojo, to DDT, to like women's promotions and everything to be able to have a full-on card. And so on May 27th, he has a show at Corgan Hall, and they announced 1,700 fans. So this again is probably, I would imagine pretty low. I mean, less than half full. But they start the show actually with a Shoichi Arai Bell memorial, goodbye, and Masato Tanaka comes to the ring. There's a bunch of the FMW wrestlers, former FMW wrestlers, that are there just to say goodbye to Arai. Masato Tanaka, Kyo Nakayama, Hideki Hosaka, Kanemaru, Chakoba Mukai. So a lot of the FMW wrestlers, including some of the indie wrestlers that are also on this show. But yeah, so anyway, the main event, because like I said, the semi-main event's just this DDT match, and I mean Takashi Sasaki and Jintaro, they start appearing on these shows for the first time on this show, so that's kind of their beginning of, starting on this post FMW world. But the main event is Kentaro Kanemaru and Tetsuhiro Kuroda against Senzahiro Takagi and Dick Togo. And pretty much, I mean, this is a good match. Kanemaru sends Dick Togo through a table. He jumps off the top turnbuckle with sending Togo through the table on the outside. And, Kanemaru gets busted open pretty bad here. But the finishing spot is Dick Togo turning on Senzahiro Takagi and giving him a pedigree, and then Kanemaru would end up laying out Takagi with a Thunderfire powerbomb, getting the win. Kanemaru was he was working for DDT as well at this point. Because of Fuyuki's illness and everything, he had stepped away as commissioner. So Kanemaru was the acting commissioner of DDT as a result. So he was feuding with Takagi during this time period. And so, like I said, Kanemaru, Kuroda, and Dick Togo have laid out Takagi, and Kanemaru is about to lay out, just hit Takagi with another power bomb when Taka Michinoku would hit the ring and give Kanemaru a super kick to the face. And so now it's going to be kind of like this heel side of the WEW guys against like the main DDT guys, which Senzahiro Takagi and Kai and Tai Dojo's top guy, Taka Michinoku.
All right. So, really quickly, so we talked before when Hito left FMW, there was some type of friction between Hito and Fuyuki. And now here they are, they're involved in this feud and stuff. What is the relationship between them like?
No, I don't necessarily know. There was definitely a friction between Fuyuki. Arai had announced, hey, if you want to leave FMW, go ahead, back in 2000. And if you don't like this style of wrestling, and then around that time period, he did leave. And again, I don't necessarily know if, hey, it was just a response to that, or if Hito announced, I'm going to America, I'll be back in 6 months. He went to America, stayed there for about a year, but then did not come back to FMW. I was always under the impression that FMW just did not want to pay for another wrestler again after all the issues that they were having financially, and just Hito would end up working for Onita and Big Japan. So around this time period, Fuyuki reaches out to Hito and is like, hey, do you want to come back and start working for my promotion? And so Hito is now going to kind of start, and Hito's, Kanemaru's in it, and Kuroda, and WEW guys. So Hito kind of fits in, and so Hito agrees to work with the WEW promotion and would follow along. So Hito would pretty much just join back up with the Fuyuki group after this.
And then the final show of this period is on June 30th, WEW. They ran the next show at Korakuen Hall. If you want to go over that one.
Yeah, so they would run Corrigan Hall on June 30th, and they would announce a crowd of 1750. So, this is, I talked about how, 2002 was not a good year as far as Japanese wrestling goes. Pride was a lot hotter at this point, MMA, and, Japanese wrestling was definitely in the decline. And so, but then you add in the fact that WEW is pretty much just that FMW entertainment style that wasn't really working with FMW. And then you add in, hey, this promotion doesn't even have the top FMW, a lot of the top FMW guys. It's just some of the FMW guys mixed in with DDT and Kaientai Dojo guys. So, this promotion's definitely not setting the world on fire by any means, but he would end up defeating Biomonster DNA on this show. Like I said earlier, Biomonster DNA, the gimmick, after FMW ended, Fuyuki pretty much just gave up on the gimmick, and Hito would end up defeating Biomonster, and then afterwards, Hito would get on the mic and pretty much call out Fuyuki, and so Kodo Fuyuki comes to the ring, and Kanemaru's with him, and Hito begins bad-mouthing Fuyuki, calling him broken down and worthless. Fuyuki's has cancer, and so Hito is just talking trash about him and everything, which would result in Fuyuki kicking Hito right in the crotch to get away from him. So that's going to be the new thing of Hito is going to be kind of like the new one of the top heels in the WEW. And then the main event is Senzuhiro Takagi and Taka Michinoku. They take on Kentaro Kanemaru and Tetsuhiro Kuroda. And so this show is kind of getting to Takagi being able to get his revenge back on Kanemaru. It wasn't taped, so I've only seen pictures of this show. But during the match, Masao Orihara, who had formerly worked for War and he worked a little bit of FMW, he came out and interfered on Kanemaru's behalf. So he's going to start working WEW as well. But he would interfere, trying to help Kanemaru, but eventually Takagi would end up getting the win over Kanemaru with a Stone Cold Stunner. And so again, it's just kind of this mixed interaction of WEW and WEW and DDT working together, because like I said, Kanemaru also around this time period, he had main evented the DDT Corrigan Hall show. They had just ran Corrigan Hall show for the first time, and it was Kanemaru versus Takagi. So they're just kind of having this feud over the summer, pretty much over throughout both promotions.
Okay. And so that will do as far as the shows for this period. I have a couple more questions before we wrap up. Now, you said a moment ago that some of the former FMW talent, they had stopped working for WEW. Now we're going to talk about it next show. But was this because of the incoming announcement of the WMF company?
Yeah, Mr. Ganosuke had reached out to all of the FMW wrestlers. He didn't want, he was out with that injury, his broken leg, and he wanted to be a promoter. He wanted to promote his own shows. And pretty much it was, okay, we just did this Fuyuki entertainment style of wrestling in FMW. It didn't work. Why are we going to do it again? Why are we just going to Ganosuke, respects Fuyuki, and so there's no slight, but it was just kind of like, wait, why are we going to do this again? I think my way of wrestling would be way better, and we could catch some momentum going instead of, again, WEW at this point is already kind of starting to like these Corrigan Hall shows aren't doing that great. They're okay, by no means are they it's a smaller FMW, which it's a smaller version of FMW at the end, which FMW at the end was a decline. So now you have a smaller version of it trying to redo it. So again, Ganosuke decides, I think my new method would be way better, which is having all the FMW, like the younger wrestlers, having a different focus on the promotion and be more based off of wrestling and the actual wrestling style, and not have the entertainment style for himself. So he reaches out to all the younger wrestlers. Like I said, Satoru Makata, Tamakazu Morita, Garuda at the time. Yoshihito Sasaki, by the way, he, one of the FMW young boys, he, after FMW closed, Tanaka was a really big fan, really liked him. He liked his fire and his strength and everything. So Tanaka actually got a job with 01 around this time period, a permanent job. And Tanaka convinced Shinya Hashimoto to bring in Yoshihito Sasaki. So Yoshihito Sasaki is actually now a part of the 01 roster. But everyone else, everyone, like I said, Happy Akeda, Flying Kidichihara, Mama Sasaki, Goemon, all them, they've all, it's a big secret, no one's supposed to know, no one can tell anything at this time, but, they are all officially, gone, they officially left the WEW side, the Fuyuki side, and they're going to start their own promotion in a couple months.
All right, and we're going to cover that a lot more next episode. So, okay, my final stuff is going to be, so we have a lot of guys to kind of talk about. If you could briefly tell us, and if they're going to wind up in WMF, we can talk about those on the next show. But what companies do the main wrestlers wind up with in this initial period after the closing of FMW? Because as you said, there's a lot of companies and a lot of guys. So where are they at the moment?
Well, most of them, yeah. So most of them are just split up through WEW and WMF. Like I said, Yoshihito Sasaki, was pretty much the only one that actually specifically left these two promotions and went to a different one when he went to 01. Everyone else, either WMF or WEW, Riki Fuji would work a lot of Michinoku Pro, Tetsuhiro Kuroda and Kentaro Kanamura at the end of June. They get a because of the 01 WEW relationship through Kawasaki, when Hashimoto and Otani ran Kawasaki Stadium, that got them in the door through 01, which was a really big deal for Kanamura because, like I said, he's used to $120,000 a year, and the previous year, his last year in FMW in 2001, he made $150,000 because you added in that $30,000 of the year that he made with Big Japan. So he's making about $30,000 with Big Japan, and Hammer would continue working Big Japan, but now you add in the WEW, which is obviously not paying anywhere near as much as what FMW was, but Kanamura was just living this lifestyle of being able to go to love hotels and everything. That when FMW closed, he was worried. Oh, I've used all my money. I've spent all my money. I've just wasted it. How am I going to eat? So he had enough to be able to live off of obviously WEW and Big Japan. But 01, being able to get a full-time or, work so many shows, and he would work the Fire Festival in 2002 for 01, being able to, get a semi-regular deal with 01 helped him at least. He obviously wasn't making as much when he was working with FMW, but at least, he's working, at least it's a little bit half or over half of what he was making of that $120,000 the year prior. Whereas Tetsuhiro Kuroda, who was also, he worked the 01 shows as well. He worked the Big Japan shows sometimes. He had saved of his money. He was more responsible with his money, so it wasn't such this dire, I need money, but Kuroda, obviously, Kuroda and Kanamura at this time, them siding with the Fuyuki and staying with the Fuyuki side, they become tag team partners regularly through Big Japan 01. But like I said, everyone else at this point is pretty much just going to either stay with Fuyuki, work for Fuyuki. Shakoba Mukai around this time would work a little bit of IWA Japan, and we'll go over that probably in another episode. He gets in an issue, and Asano has to bail him out. But at this time, also the WMF guys, most of them are not even working up until WMF starts up. I think Goemon worked a Michinoku Pro show, and Anrio was working freelance shows like the Big Japan or Michinoku Pro. But other than that, most of them just stayed, they stayed inactive up until WMF started.
And speaking of Goemon, so I just want to bring this up. You wrote on your site during when this was all going on that Goemon wouldn't be on any of these post FMW shows because apparently there was an issue with he had ownership in something. What did you mean by that?
I don't know if he had ownership. He was very close with the FMW. Again, he was on the booking team for a good amount of time. I don't know necessarily remember. I mean, that was a while ago. If he had ownership, I mean, if it was very small. Like I said, it was a big deal to him when FMW closed down financially and everything. And I talked to Ricky Fuji a couple years ago, and anyone that knows Koji Nakagawa, he had this very, very distinct long hair throughout FMW, and then all of a sudden he just went bald. I mean, his hair just started declining fast. And I mean, now to the point where he is completely bald. And, I mean, this happened, just in his 30s, just all of a sudden. And I asked Ricky Fuji about it. And I go, what happened to his hair? It was so long and so, so noticeable, and just declined in just 2 to 3 years. And he goes, it's because FMW closed down. He was so stressed, and Ricky Fuji and Nakagawa are really good friends. He was so stressed and had so much anxiety about FMW closing down. He feels he lost all his hair from it. So I mean, again, I don't necessarily know as far as ownership or remember if it was an ownership. If it was a small bit of one. But I mean, again, Nakagawa was the FMW dojo trainer. He trained all the FMW guys, so he had more jobs as well when it came, than just simply just FMW wrestler.
All right, and with that, we're going to wrap up that section of time for for the death of FMW. Make sure to come back next week. We're going to be talking about WMF and a lot more of other stuff. And I just want to let people know, in this period, we're going to probably start speeding things up a bit and covering longer sections of time. So that'll be really fun to me. So, Brett, if you want to let people know, where can people find you online?
BahuFMW.com, where you can read almost all about this stuff that we're talking about, through biographies, results, news, everything. I mean, I have news going back to 20 years. And then you can find me on Bahu FMW on Twitter, or Bahu FMW on Twitter, and where anything that comes out, breaking news type stuff, I'll report. Or and you can find me on Instagram, Bahu FMW World, where I just post a bunch of pictures of FMW stuff, and Brett FMW on YouTube.
And you can find me on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at INTL Wrestling. I have a website, intlwrestling.wordpress.com, where I do 3 or 4 times a month newsletter covering all the deathmatch news I can possibly find from America, Canada, Mexico, the UK. It's getting very popular for some reason. And I also have another podcast, which is the Deathmatch News Radio, which is on the THT Network. If you just search THT Network, you'll find it. That's also where we're going to be moving these podcasts to, starting with the previous show that you guys probably heard. So, okay, with that, we will thank you for listening and come back next week.